I'd like to call to order the September 19th, 2016 Currituck County Commissioners meeting. First item on our agenda will be the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. The Reverend Ronnie Cully, Christian Home Baptist, will lead us. Let's all stand, please.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to be together in your presence. We thank you for how you take care of everything that concerns us. You bless us every day of our lives, and we give you glory for that. We thank you for this meeting, Father God, that's about to take place. And we thank you for each and every commissioner, Father God. We thank you for the love that they have to serve their community and to serve you, Father God. And we ask you to bless them and strengthen them, Father God. Give them your wisdom and knowledge to make sound decisions that will bless the community and will be a blessing to you, Father God. Strengthen them in their bodies. Give them peace of mind, Father God. Bless their families, Father God. Everything that they're concerned about, take care of them so that they can do their job with joy. And we thank you for the members of Currituck County community, Father God. We thank you that together, Father God, in unity, Father God, that this county will continue to flourish and be blessed. We give you glory and honor for everything that's done by these men and women. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. All right, next item on the agenda will be the approval of the agenda. I like to, at this time, under public hearings, I want to swap public hearing and action PB 16-12 Glenmore Ridge, which is item B, and put it in item C, and transfer item C, which is public hearing and action PB 16-11 Waterleigh, to the B position. And additionally, I would like to, under board appointments, to pull the 3 listed appointments to be heard tonight.
Motion for approval.
Second. With a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none in opposition, motion passes unanimously. All right. I would like to point out that Commissioner Idlet is not with us tonight. He's out of town and will be back, I believe, Wednesday. Next item under administrative reports. We are fortunate and happy to have with us tonight Ms. Cameron Lowe, Director of the North NCSU Cooperative Extension, and the purposes tonight is a much long overdue recognition of the 4-H award winners. And with that, Ms. Lowe.
Thank you. So as he said, I'm Cameron Lowe, County Extension Director, but you guys already knew that. I do not have a fancy PowerPoint or video for you tonight, but what I do have is a phenomenal representation of all the hard work that goes into Currituck County 4-H that's sitting behind me here tonight. We do, in Currituck County 4-H, work to develop our youth into competent and contributing citizens that succeed in their chosen careers, and I'll prove that to you here in just a minute. We have an emphasis on science, technology, engineering, and math, as well as leadership development, and these things prepare our Currituck County youth for their successful futures. As you know, the 4-H program is the youth education program of North Carolina Cooperative Extension, based at NC State and NC A&T State universities. You may not know that more than 239,000 young people between the ages of 5 and 19 participate in North Carolina 4-H activities. So that's just the state of North Carolina. Cooperative Extension, of course, is operated through the College of Ag and Life Sciences at NC State University, and as such, our focus in Cooperative Extension is trifold. We focus on agriculture, food and nutrition, and 4-H and youth development. So many of our 4-H efforts focus on foods and nutrition and agriculture. North Carolina's agriculture, including food, fiber, and forestry, contribute about $84 billion to North Carolina's economy. That's 17% of our state's income, 17% of our state's workforce. In Currituck County, according to our last agriculture census, there are 82 working farms covering about 35,000 acres. Our cash farm receipts from that last census totaled over $21 million, and the North Carolina Farm Bureau estimates that agriculture in Currituck County has over a $50 million economic impact. So a very valuable industry to our community. So along those lines, Currituck County 4-H participated in a number of agricultural programs, and that's what I'll focus on first. So we have our traditional animal agriculture programs, including equine science, livestock, poultry, and even rabbit programs. These youth are learning valuable life skills like record keeping, family finance, responsibility, animal husbandry, and so much more. Several of our Currituck County 4-Hers, some of whom are here tonight, showed their equine in both the district and state 4-H horse shows held this summer in Williamston and Raleigh, respectively. Those here tonight, if they go ahead and please stand and be recognized, we have Jordan Starcher, Kayla Boyd, and Dalton Hauser. And Johnny Cox, is he here? Johnny, didn't you participate in the horse show as well? All right, well, stand on up, be recognized. Oh, you are. I didn't even see you. So congratulations to these young people that participated in that event. Our Currituck County 4-H youth also participated in the State 4-H and District 4-H Horse Bowl, and that's a quiz bowl type competition that focuses on the equine industry. In a related note, the district contest was held here in Currituck County this year, and we had over 100 youth and adults come to Currituck, participate in that contest, and spend some time in our lovely county. If the youth that were involved in those contests would please stand. We have Houston, Nick, and Chris Bird. Kayla Boyd, Elijah, you did horse bowl. Where are you? There you go. Elijah's back there in the back. Elijah Campbell. One of our horse bowl teams, so congratulations to these young folks. Teams went undefeated at both the district and the state competitions in all their levels of competition. So we're very, very proud of all the hard work that they did. And this wasn't really part of the program, but Katie Durbin's mom is here tonight. And Katie, hi, Catherine. And Katie is an alumni of the Currituck County 4-H horse program, and she's currently, if I'm correct, she's on the equestrian team at App State. Is that right? So carrying it on to the next level. So we're very proud of the impacts that we've made in there. 9 of our youth raised animals as an entrepreneurial project and participated in the Albemarle area 4-H livestock show and sale. If you guys would just stand up for me if you participated in the livestock show. We've got Aiden Berry, Tessa and Taylor Lowry back there in the back. Thank you guys and congratulations. Millen also participated and was hoping to be here with us tonight, but he is stuck in traffic and weather on his way home from a charity show in Indiana. So Hunter actually showed the grand champion hog in the 5-county area. And while that may sound impressive, Hunter also holds various national showmanship and grand champion animal titles at contests throughout the United States. In fact, he raised the 3rd place hog in the World Pork Expo held in Iowa. So a very accomplished young man. And just to show you how we prepare folks for their futures, Hunter is using his skills to help him in his burgeoning farm-to-fork pork production business. He wants to be a hog farmer when he grows up. So 4-H is helping prepare our children for things like that. Rounding out our animal science projects was the 4-H Chicken and Rabbit Show, and it was held this past weekend in conjunction with the Currituck Heritage Festival. And they're not here tonight because they didn't have enough notice to get their stuff together, but we did have Grand Champion Rabbit was exhibited by Ellie Jackson, and Grand Champion Chicken was exhibited by Cheyenne McLeod. So that's a look at our agricultural related programs, but that is just a teeny tiny part of the story. In addition to agriculture, 4-H offers various programs directly geared toward leadership development. One of those is the Currituck 4-H Presentation and Public Speaking Program, which aims to help students overcome their fear of public speaking and develop a mastery of that skill. 19 Currituck County youth, 16 of which were first-time presenters, participated in the 2016 Northeast District Activity Day giving oral presentations in 14 categories. If you gave a presentation at District Activity Day, please stand. Gregory. All right, I have to call them out. So here tonight we have Tucker Melton, Caden Lowe, Gregory Dozier, Alexis Berg, Ashton Lowe, and Gabe Campbell back there in the back. Fantastic. I'll stand up again in a minute. But somebody's waving at me. Who did I mean? Yes, Elijah Campbell's back there in the back too. He also. Sorry about that, Elijah. But I do want to tell you that at the district competition, there are over 300 youth and adults that come from 22 counties to come and give those presentations. So it's no small feat to move from district to state. 14, like I said, 14 of these youth earned gold, silver, or bronze medals at District Activity Day, and 7 went on to compete and receive medals in the state competition. And those participants that were recognized at state were Ian Beatty, Ashton Lowe, Tucker Melton, Cheyenne McLeod, Armani Rasco, Alexis Berg, and Jayla King. And you saw Alexis, Ashton, Tucker, and I think that's all that are here tonight that were recognized on the state level. So congratulations to them. During that same week at State 4-H Congress, Gregory Dozier, and Gregory, you can come on up. Gregory participated for a chance to earn a national 4-H trip in the state application, resume, interview, and essay contest. And while Gregory didn't win this year, he will, but he didn't win this year, Gregory came home with an ignited passion for 4-H and leadership development and went on to invest his time volunteering with our Summer 4-H Day Camp program, which reached over 75 Currituck County young people this summer. So, to give him just a little bit of exposure and additional skill development, I'm going to let Gregory take over for just a bit.
One Currituck County 4-H member attended 4-H Citizenship North Carolina Focus, as well as the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Youth Summit. The purpose of these events were to exchange ideas, gain knowledge, and learn through hands-on experiences about the importance of being an active and engaged citizen. Tucker Melton represented Currituck County. Tucker was also featured as a guest on the North Carolina Spin television show aired on the WARL in Raleigh, North Carolina. At this time, I'd like to invite Tucker forward to tell you a bit about his experiences and how they have impacted what he's done in our local community.
Good evening. The summer of 2016 has been a very busy one for me, to say the least. Since being elected 4-H Council President, I have been very active in all aspects of 4-H. On May 14th, I competed in District Activity Day. My project was in a public speaking category for citizenship. I wrote and presented a speech on the creation of the Constitution and incorporated a PowerPoint presentation as part of the program. I earned a silver medal at districts and became eligible for the state competition to be held at 4-H Congress. I attended Citizenship Focus for the week of June 13th and had the opportunity to meet and speak with Senator Cook and Representative Steinberg. This was such a great experience. Citizenship Focus was an information-packed week where we learned about civil discourse, public speaking, and the electoral process, and voting, and building a budget. It was at Citizenship Focus that I was picked to participate at NC Spin in Raleigh. July was also a busy month. As I was chosen to attend 4-H Congress, I competed at the state level in public speaking category and presented my speech about the Constitution and received silver at the state level. After the state competition, I attended Congress, where I attended many workshops on leadership and the power of youth. State officer elections were held at Congress, and I participated in helping as a campaign manager for one of the candidates. The Hands to Service project this year was creating 80,000 meals for the needy in North Carolina. This was a very exciting event for me. As I returned to Currituck after 4-H Congress, I returned to Raleigh. As soon as I returned to Currituck after 4-H Congress, I returned to Raleigh to participate in NC Spin. This was a panelist discussion or debate TV show moderated by Tom Campbell on the TV station WRAL. I had a great experience participating in the event and was topped off by a tour of WRAL, which I found very interesting. I attended the Youth Voice Summit as a youth delegate. This summit was in conjunction with the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Conference, where I connected with commissioners from across the state. I was able to meet Currituck County Commissioner Paul O'Neill and present an idea for an after-school 4-H club that would get the school system to drop students off at the extension office and participate in a club that focused on tutoring and scholastic programs. Last but not least, my 4-H shooting club participated in Eastern Regional Qualifier. This was the first time our club has competed in a shooting sports tournament. While I personally did not qualify for state, my teammate did qualify and will be representing Currituck County at the state competition. I had a great time competing and look forward to competing again next year. 4-H has been a great experience for me, and I'm looking forward to another action-packed year in 2017. My next projects will be to assist my civics teacher at JP Knapp to create a 4-H club and to see if the county will assist in donating or designating some land at or near the extension office to apply for a grant from the Friends of the NRA to create an archery range for all youth and adults in Currituck County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motivated young people. Almost done. Currituck 4-Hers have also participated and won honors in other project-related contests and events this spring and summer. The annual 4-H Electric Congress recognizes youth who have spent the last year learning about electricity, alternative energy sources and practices, and new and emerging electric and energy technologies. Winners from Currituck County at the state event were Zachariah Crawford, and also here Gabe Campbell. There he is. And Armani Rasco. The electric program is one of the many STEM programs offered through 4-H. And finally, as Tucker mentioned, the Eastern Regional 4-H Shooting Sports Competition was held this past month, and 2 teams from Currituck County participated in the state qualifying event. The senior team consisted of Tucker Melton, Gavin Phillips, Chance Henderson, J.B. Colson, and Sam Curtich. And the junior team consisted of Isabella Adams, Emma Solly, Noah Ballou, and Justin New. Chance finished in the overall top 5 in the region and has qualified for the state tournament in riflery. He'll attend the state competition this weekend and work to qualify for the nationals, which will be held in Nebraska next June. So, you asked us here tonight to recognize our Currituck 4-H members. And perhaps you thought cows and cooking or sewing and canning, and I hope that tonight you got much more than you bargained for. And we only touched on some of the programs. And I can take very little credit for any of this. The adults that are with these children, the volunteers, the 4-H staff that's sitting back here, that's where the work is happening, the youth themselves. It's a phenomenal program that relies on so many partners. Currituck 4-H alumni currently are business owners, teachers, coaches in our community, they're dentists in our community, they're doctors in our community, they're parents, they're farmers, they're nurses, they're lawyers, they're engineers, they're marketing professionals, they're active in our armed services, they're bank managers, and they're county extension directors. And the list goes on and on and on. I personally want to thank you so much for the investment that you make in the Cooperative Extension and the investment that you make in Currituck County 4-H. I personally owe you and the program a huge debt of gratitude. And I have to give a quick shout out to my 4-H agent, my dad, Mr. Rodney Sawyer. It's his birthday today, so that's his shout out. Your investments could not be better spent, and I hope that the proof is in the pudding tonight. So, with that, I or these young people would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Miss Lowe, I just got one question.
Okay.
I know in the county growing up here, we used to have quite a few hog farms in the county.
We did.
How many do we currently have in the county? Do you recall?
As of the 2012 census, we have no commercial hog productions in the county.
Okay.
Now, small-scale agricultural production is a different story. There are some folks throughout the county that are raising pasture pork, backyard flocks, poultry flocks, even some small-scale cattle operations as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions we can answer?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I was wondering if Tucker would be so kind to the ideas that we discussed, I guess it's been a month ago, about getting the kids to 4-H after school. I was wondering if you'd be so kind to put those in a document that I could share with the rest of the board and the school board.
Absolutely.
And just those, I think there was like 3 or 4 little ideas that you shared with me. If you could put those in a document, I'd appreciate it, and just get it to the manager, and he'll distribute it to the rest of the board members.
Absolutely.
And I thank you so very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
Maybe I missed it. There were 22 other counties involved in a lot of these events that you had. How many actual kids are there? Do you have an idea? I mean, roughly?
In the 22 county area,
That are participating.
or that are participating in Currituck County 4-H?
Well, Currituck and possibly the others as well, but Currituck mainly.
Well, if you're just looking at Currituck, I can't give you a hard and fast number. Actually, come December, I'll give you the 2016 numbers because we're getting ready to compile those. But every second grader in Currituck County participates in 4-H through the embryology project. We take that to every single school in the county. We have a number of community 4-H clubs. Hundreds of Currituck County children participate.
Every second grader? Wow.
Every second grader. This summer, our 4-H summer day camp, we had 75 youth that came through the doors of the camp at one point or another. But yes, every single second grader is exposed to 4-H. They get a chance to incubate eggs. They learn about the life cycle of chicks. They actually take the chicks through from egg to hatch, and hang on to the chicks for a couple of weeks, and then we take them and rehome them. But
Thank you.
other questions?
Just I guess a comment, because I asked this, I guess, about a month and a half ago, 2 months, if you could come out here. And what an outstanding group of young people, my goodness. And I was fortunate enough to attend an agricultural conference in Raleigh here just a couple of weeks ago, and it's astounding how important agribusiness is to this state and how important it is to the world. The United States has been traditionally the food basket for the rest of the world. With the burgeoning population, the increases, the weather change, we're being at, and North Carolina is significant in agribusiness. But with these changes and with the population increase, there's fewer and fewer being asked to do more and more. Now, this state has recognized how important agribusiness is, and the investment that this current administration has made in the land grant universities, I think you alluded to, North Carolina State and North Carolina A&T, has been significant for the investment in scientific technological approaches to do more with less. And it's an exciting field, and it is one that is extremely important. Another thing, I'm old enough. I grew up here in Currituck, and farming was a big deal. Where Emmett McMillan is right now was serendipitously, it was a hog farm. Mr. Zach Owens had it for years when I was a little kid growing up. And it's shrinking. It's shrinking as we're finding. The average age of a farmer in North Carolina is 57. This is an important, exciting, and scientific venture now agriculture has turned in, and it's important to this state, and you have done a great job, and these kids are an inspiration. I would like to ask for all to stand up and be recognized one more time, if you would, please.
And the adults too.
Yes, of course. Our thanks.
Thank you so much, and now we're going to empty out your meeting. So.
I'm leaving with them.
Be safe going home.
Thank you.
Wasn't that neat? That was good. All right. Under public hearings, next item on our agenda will be public hearing and action, PB 90-07, Pine Island Phase 1 Commercial. It's a request to amend the sketch plan/use permit for commercial allocation located on Ocean Trail and Old Stony Road. It's on tax map 127, parcel 3M, Poplar Branch, OBX Township. And since this is a use permit, I will ask all those involved in this that wish to give testimony to come forward. Okay. Do you and each of you swear that testimony you give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. We'll open the public hearing at this point in time, and Mr. Woody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a amended sketch plan request for the Pine Island Plan Unit Development, so it's a little different than what you typically see. Pine Island is one of the plan unit developments that was approved on the Outer Banks. I actually don't have the exact date, but probably sometime in the late 80s to early 90s, so it's one of these large master plan subdivisions that has kind of evolved over the years. It's actually probably pretty close to being built out. There's still a few tracts of land that are available. One of the key components of our planned developments over on the beach is that they're able to have, they must have 35% open space, and they're able to have up to 10% of commercial allocation. And of course, that leaves the remaining 55% of the development to be developed as residential type uses primarily. So what you end up having on our beach that's a little different than maybe Dare County perhaps is you have these planned developments that have developed and created nodes of commercial and not been able to strip out NC12 with commercial because they've had limited commercial allocations. So what you're seeing tonight is an application by the developer to establish some additional acreage under or as part of their 10% commercial allocation. What this does, if the board approves this request tonight, it will increase the commercial allocation to about within an acre of their 10% max. So they're getting close to kind of maxing out the commercial allocation that's available for this planned development. The Pine Island, let me back up a slide. On what you see, our land use plan designates this as full service. This tract of land is on the northern end of the Pine Island PUD, so it abuts up to the Ocean Club Shopping Center, which is part of the Currituck Club plan development. And of course, across the street from this, the county operates a Southern Beach Access, so this is our public access point, which also doubles as an access point for the Currituck Club subdivision to the beach. So a little closer view here. You can see this is the area specifically that's at the corner of NC12 and Old Stony Road. And what I want to real quickly run you through on this is there's two shades of red on this. The lighter shade, which is kind of a pink color, was the commercial allocation that the developer established on this property in June of 2014. At that point, they established 3.35 acres of commercial allocation. They're now coming back to the board to request an additional 4.5 acres of commercial allocation on this property. So when you add the dark red and the light red colors together, you have just over 7.5 acres of commercial. If you add that in to the Ocean Club Shopping Center, which is north of and adjacent to this, you have a commercial node of about 16 acres. So what you're doing is you're taking an existing commercial built shopping center and adding additional commercially zoned or available land to the south of that and kind of creating that node of development that we typically see with our planned developments. Counties historically encourage this type of commercial node development in the Outer Banks, and so from that respect, this particular location for commercial allocation is consistent with the county's historical policies towards commercial development on the beach. Another thing that I want to make sure the board understands is that this is a sketch plan use permit, so what they're doing is essentially amending their master plan. Tonight, this commercial allocation, if approved, doesn't give any development approvals to the developer. Whoever develops this property still has to come back in for site plan approval. Most of the commercial and office and service type uses in our commercial zoning or allocations on the beach are predominantly approved by the staff. So most likely, if this is approved, the next development phase that comes in will be approved by the TRC at the staff level. We still, however, require use permits for uses such as airports, outdoor recreation, automobile sales, and rentals. There's a handful of things that would come back to this board when they propose a development. But again, this tonight establishes a commercial zoning, so to speak, or the allocation. Any actual use of the property will require another site plan approval in the future by either the staff or the Board of Commissioners, depending on what the use is. Staff would note, of course, if it came in as an approval for the staff, we would look for compliance or consistency with our land use plan and look to make sure that whatever development is proposed there would be of a quality that's consistent with what we see in the Outer Banks, which I think our land use plan supports, looking for that quality development on the beach. Property served by the Southern Outer Banks water system. It's served by the Pine Island sewer system. It's compatible with the 2006 land use plan. You can see it's full service. Staff is recommending approval of this amended sketch plan use permit. One thing you have to do, one step beyond the staff recommendation you have to do tonight is, this is a use permit, so you have to make the 4 findings that are required before issuing a use permit. On agenda packet page 8, you can see the use permit review standards. I'm not going to read those to you, but you can see the information that the applicant submitted in support of those standards. Of course, you'll hear additional testimony tonight regarding those standards, but again, as a point of reference, agenda package page 8 has your use permit review standards. And one last thing I'll say that I think will come up tonight, and I'm going to go ahead and just mention this ahead of time. There's been some question raised. This property is at the corner of NC 12 and Old Stony Road, and you can see the road name Old Stony Road just above. It's really difficult to see above the parcel of land highlighted in light blue. And on this map, it adjoins directly to the darker red commercial allocation on the boundary of this property. Old Stony Road is a private road or easement, and before any access to Old Stony Road can occur, there would have to be proper permission granted and documented. So if this came back before the county as a site plan approval, we would look to make sure that this property had proper legal access to Old Stony Road. Remember, it has access to 12 regardless, so there is an access on 12. From a planning perspective, multiple ways in and out are probably a preferable approach, but of course that's got to be worked out between the property owner and the owners of the adjacent shopping center. I do understand that perhaps tonight the applicant's willing to propose not taking access from Old Stony Road at that time, so they're willing to have that discussion. But I just want to give you a heads up on Old Stony Road, and it is a private road, and it does require permission to use for access. So with that, I can answer any questions the board has now or after comments.
Any questions? Okay. Hearing none, I see here on the sign-up sheet, the applicant, Tom, is it Tom Nash will go first?
Mr. Chairman, my name is Tom Nash. My address is 117 Dixonson Loop, Elizabeth City. I'm an attorney with Trimpe and Nash, and I am here tonight representing Turnpike Properties, LLC. We're here before you tonight to amend the existing Pine Island PUD simply to add an additional 4.5 acres of commercial development north of the fire station on the west side of NC 12. As Mr. Woody has already stated, the individual development plans will of course require further site plan or use permit approval before this board. I don't know that it would serve any purpose for me to repeat what has been given to you in your packet, but I would respectfully submit that the 4 specific findings of fact that are necessary are in fact met with this request and is indicated by the staff recommendation and that of the Technical Review Committee. I stand ready to answer any questions that you may have. Michael Strader of Quibble and Associates is here as well to answer any questions. Mr. Woody brought up the access, and he is correct that we are not accessing Stony Road at this point.
Okay. Any questions from the board for Mr. Nash? Hearing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll call Mr. Straker.
I simply signed up in the event that you have any technical questions for me, so I won't add any presentation to what you've already heard.
Okay, with regard to the 4 findings that we must find in your capacity as an engineer, could you speak to how you came about any of those findings and the predication upon which you did so?
Yes, sir, I would just say that we were in complete agreement with those findings.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question. The access for the roadway, if you're not using the Old Stony, what access are you using? Straight from the highway? Or?
From NC-12, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'd like for the record to remind everyone at this table, maybe some that weren't at this table. I don't think anybody was at this table when the Currituck Club was approved. It is one of several very nice developments we have on the Outer Banks. But one of the arguments against approving that development was there was only going to be one ingress and egress. And the board finally overcame that objection and did approve that. And that development has flourished and prospered with one ingress and egress. So a lot of times when I hear, I agree, 2 is better than 1. But 1 is not a deal killer on something that meets the rest of the criteria. And it's just something this board needs to remember.
Thank you. Any other comment, question? All right, hearing none. Thank you, sir. And I guess the next will be Mr. Blizzard.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything to add. I'm just here on behalf of the ownership.
Thank you, sir. And last I see signed up is Mr. Ives.
I do not.
Okay.
I have one last question.
Sure.
Mr. Woody, has any objections been raised for this moving of the commercial?
I've received no complaints of moving and establishing the commercial at this location. The 2 items that I've been aware of in the community is one is the access from Old Stony Brook Road, which I think we all agree that needs to be approved before it occurs. At the community meeting, there was some concern over the possible types of uses that could occur on this property. There was some concern there could be storage type uses here. Since the community meeting, I haven't had any real direct comment from the community regarding the uses. So at this point, I can't really relay any additional concern from the community,
but
from my office.
Use is not before us tonight.
Use is not before you. You are going to, if this is approved, it will operate under the GB zoning district, so any use that comes in will be subject to the landscaping, the design standards, the compatibility standards, all the other UDO standards that you have in place will apply to any such development. So,
But aren't all of the other approved commercials areas under the same general business standards?
Correct.
So this would be no different than anything else that already exists?
Correct.
Or what they already have approval for?
That's correct.
Okay, any additional questions from the board? All right. Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion that that we move to approve BB 90-07 with the staff recommendations, and that the use will not endanger the public health and safety as it conforms with all the adjacent land users currently. It will not injure the value of adjoining or budding lands and will be in harmony with the area in which is located. It'll blend well between the Currituck Club and the municipal services to the south. The use will be in conformity with the land use plan and other official adopted plans, and it will conform to the current GB zoning requirements, and that the use will not exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities. There are current wastewater capacities available, and the stormwater management shall be required. And also, to add to that, the motion that we make sure that the Old Stony Road access is addressed prior to this. Moving forward, that'd be my motion.
I'll second. Any discussion on the motion or the second? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, opposition, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, next item we have on our agenda is public hearing and action, PB 16-11, Waterleigh, request for a preliminary plat use permit for a 275 lot conservation subdivision located off Tulls Creek Road, tax map 14, parcel 39, and tax map 21, parcel 12C, Moyock Township. With that, anyone contemplating delivering testimony relative to this matter, please come forward for swearing. Do you and each of you swear the testimony you give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Consider yourself sworn. Mr. Woody, I'll open the hearing at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A lot to go through on this one. It's actually a pretty large subdivision for the county, so I'm going to try to walk you through this and do my best to answer any questions you have. And I'm sure the applicant can add to some of the information I'm going to provide. So this is a tract of land. It's approximately 275 acres. It is a piece of what was formerly known as the Currituck Reserve subdivision. I don't know that any of these commissioners were on the board at the time that was probably around, except for possibly Commissioner O'Neill at some point.
I missed that one.
You missed that one. It was a large subdivision that in 2008 was approved by the then Board of Commissioners. It was a 688 lot planned development, about 1.47 units per acre gross density. It was actually at that point was intended to include commercial elements. It had the library site, where we have the library now. It also had land that at that time was conceivably set aside for a future school site possibly. So a very, very large subdivision. Since that time, it has not come to fruition. So a lot of the tracts that originally made up that subdivision have now broken into separate tracts that are being developed individually. And the staff is working to try to connect those or integrate those as best as possible. You saw a tract of land, another piece of this, that was 103 lots several months ago that was actually brought forward by Armada Hoffler, the original developer of Currituck Reserve, or one of the original developers. That piece has already been given preliminary plat approval. Another thing interesting related to history is in May of 2016, about the time the Armada Hoffler project was approved, the county did remove the planned development overlay. So the zoning district that was in place to allow this higher density subdivision has subsequently been removed. So now you essentially just have land that's zoned single family mainland, our typical residential zoning district. The property is what's proposed on this particular tract of land is 275 units. So collectively, if you take the Armada Hoffler piece that had 103 units, you take the subdivision that's coming next, which is proposing 48 units, which is part of the original Currituck Reserve, and this one at 275, you have a total of 426 units that you're looking at on what is most of the Currituck Reserve subdivision previously. That's down from 688. So there was some other land included in that. And that may develop at some point. But generally, you're looking at probably several hundred lots of an overall density decrease in what this was in 2008 versus now. Probably one of the big differences, in my opinion, is that in 2008 they were proposing to build a central sewer system. It was a privately owned system. These are on-site septic. But I'll also say in the 2008 version, the lots were much smaller than these, and they had a lot of cluster development, which freed up more land for other types of open space or uses. So it's very different development patterns, but just wanted to give some context for the history of this and where we're at now. One thing that came up during the, and it's limited, let me back up, it's limited service on the MOC small area plan. Limited service allows between 1 and 1.5 units per acre. This particular part of Currituck Reserve, the Waterleigh, is about 1 unit per acre, so it's pretty consistent with the limited service density designation. It's a conservation subdivision, so it has 40% open space, and that leaves about 60% of the land for roads and development. So what you can see is this is an overview of the tract of land, the subdivision. It has a access to Tolls Creek Road. It also has an access that connects to the Amata Hoffler subdivision, what's being called Currituck Reserve, and that's the road that will actually go out by the library. So into this development, you can enter by the library site, or you can enter or exit at a point, I guess it would be west of that on Tolls Creek Road. So it has 2 accesses in and out, and you can see it's also stubbing to an additional farm that adjoins this property. So it's kind of building that connectivity among adjoining tracts. County proposed for county water, as I said earlier, it's proposed also for on-site septic system. This is the part of your agenda packet that had about 275 lot evaluations in it, so it made the package particularly large. But if you went through those, you can see that most of the lots were deemed to be suitable for on-site septic. One thing I want to talk about is transportation. This is proposed to be curb and gutter. And what they're doing is on both sides of the street, they're adding a 4-foot wide sidewalk. So you're going to have sidewalks in this subdivision. The tract of land, the street that goes from this subdivision and or connects to the library or to the adjoining subdivision. If you remember at the last meeting with Amata Hoffler, the board required they have an 8-foot sidewalk. This will continue that into their development. So from this development out to Tolls Creek Road, past the library, and also past some of the land the county picked up as a park dedication, will have an 8-foot sidewalk. So you'll have a main walkway that goes into this subdivision from the library site. Stormwater drainage was another issue that came up. Originally, there were some issues or some mechanics that needed to be worked through in terms of trying to get these 3 subdivisions to function together for stormwater and drainage. The last development that was approved, the board included a condition that referenced an agreement between these developers that essentially specified they would work together to provide drainage for this whole subdivision. That agreement is also incorporated into this approval as a staff condition and would carry forward on this as well. So that's, again, integrating these 3 developments as best as possible in terms of stormwater management. Another thing that I want to spend a little more time on tonight in terms of stormwater is you see on the map here, hopefully you can see that there's a blue area. It's highlighted blue on the left side of the map. That is an area that the Army Corps of Engineers designated or classified as a wetland area. So it was delineated as wetlands. Originally on their plan, the developer had intended to use that as part of their stormwater management system. So they were going to make that a pond. As much as anything, I think they were doing that for aesthetics probably. But they're not able to do that at this point. In the county, this is a conservation subdivision. One of the things the county does is says that wetland areas are conservation areas, so you're not able to disturb those. We've had a lot of back and forth on this. What they're proposing to do is to take that wetland area and use that not as a stormwater management device, but use that as stormwater storage. So when the stormwater comes, and again, we're before engineering, so some of this we're having to just make educated guesses on at this point. But the stormwater will be managed primarily in the ponds, the best management, the BMPs, the wet ponds. But they have a situation where there's an overflow into a ditch, which is the outlet, and then that overflows into this wetland area. So again, they're proposing to use part of the wetlands for stormwater storage, not for stormwater management. And so that's something I want the board just to understand. Again, I don't think it doesn't harm the wetlands. In some respects, I would say wetlands are there to manage stormwater and flood. So I could also argue that you're taking advantage of the natural drainage of the site and letting stormwater go to a low spot as opposed to engineering away from a low spot. But I just want the board to understand this is a conservation subdivision, and they are proposing, and at this point staff's allowing them to use wetlands to at least provide some storage for stormwater. So I just want everybody to understand that as we have this discussion tonight. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is on the right side of the screen, on the road that connects to the Amata Hoffler site in the library, you see a green tract of land, a little piece of land highlighted in green. That's about 3.4 acres of parkland and recreation dedication that they're proposing. And that 3.4 acres is actually what the ordinance requires is that they propose 7 acres. What they're asking to do is propose 3.4 acres on this corner, and then pay the fee for the remaining 3.5 acres that they would otherwise have to dedicate. We've talked about this with the Parks and Recreation Director, and if you can look at this map on the red kind of cloud that you see a circle, that's where the library site is. The green tract of land that looks like 2 triangles connected, that's the land that was dedicated to the county as part of the Amata Hoffler subdivision that the county will now be in control of. And when you put that with the library, you have enough acres to maybe do some park amenities or other things associated with the library. So it builds that acreage the county has. The area in yellow is open space that's in the Amata Hoffler subdivision. So that area in yellow is not land that this developer controls. However, if the county were somehow able to acquire that land, it could then connect to the green highlighted area in this subdivision on the left that this developer does control. So the Parks and Recreation Director and the TRC thinks that adding the 3.5 acres that this developer is proposing to dedicate is good and a positive, but it needs to be connected back to the library and the land that the county has already acquired. So as you consider this open space or this recreation dedication tonight, I would submit that if the board does decide to require that dedication, that 3.5 acres on the left, that we do that, we accept that contingent upon the county being able to go back to Amata Hoffler and get access to that yellow open space gap and connect that. If you put all that together, you have enough land to maybe do some recreation activities around, because it wouldn't be a regional park, but think in terms of if you have 400 and something houses here, some recreation amenities or even some additional programming space related to the library may make sense in this area. So I just want the board to think about that. If we decide to accept this dedication of 3.5 acres, I would suggest that we make that contingent upon the county being able to acquiring the yellow area that says open space gap and connecting that. And if we can't acquire that by construction drawings, I think the county at that point would then take the fee or the payment in lieu of the open space dedication. So just something to think about with this subdivision as you review this tonight. The staff is recommending approval of this subdivision. It does meet the conditions of the UDO. It's consistent with the land use plan densities. We're also including conditions of approval. A couple of things I want the board to think about as you work through this is, number one, is think about the wetland map I showed you and the fact that we're allowing some stormwater storage in the wetlands. Number two, think about the open space dedication and that's probably only useful if we can connect it to the land the county already has. And then beyond that, there's 5 conditions that the staff's recommending be incorporated into the use permit. One, that revised plans be submitted and approved by the TRC prior to the use permit issuance. They need to record a recombination plat to clean up some of the property lines that exist among various parcels. If the county doesn't accept the 3.5 acres by construction drawings, if we can't work this out, then that would be converted to a payment in lieu. The floriferal wetlands be preserved for conservation and not used for stormwater management systems. However, they can be used to collect and naturally drain the wetlands for stormwater purposes, so more of a not a management, but more of a storage area. And then number 4, that the agreement regarding shared infrastructure for drainage, easements, and right-of-ways be incorporated into this approval, the same agreement of which was incorporated in the last approval of the Amata Hoffler property. On Agenda Package 57, you can see the use permit review standards that were provided by the applicant. Those are the 4 findings that are required to be addressed, and you can see the applicant provided those in great detail. Actually, this is one where the applicant provided the findings as opposed to the staff, so they actually put these together. So I want to acknowledge that on their behalf. And with that, I can answer any questions the board has now or after questions or after applicants' presentations. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Woody, did I hear you earlier say, maybe I misunderstood what you said. You said most of the properties pass septic tests?
Say that again.
Did you
please.
state earlier that most of the properties passed the septic test, or all of them did?
All of them did. Whatever's in there had to have at least. I'll be honest. I didn't look at all the 275 septic evaluations. The staff did, but if they're in there, they passed. So.
Okay.
Any ones that would not have passed will not be on this plan you see tonight. So.
All right, any other questions of Mr. Woody? All right, hearing none, I'll ask the applicant to come forward, present the evidence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark Bissell, and we prepared a PowerPoint presentation because it is a large development. We thought it might be helpful to provide some more detail on certain aspects of this, and you're certainly welcome to interject and ask any questions as we go, or I'll answer questions at the end, whatever you prefer. First of all, as Mr. Woody already showed you, the property is situated within the single-family mainland zoning district and within limited service, and was formerly part of the plan unit development. It is a 275.5 acre tract. It was the largest tract that was in the original reserve, and he's talking about the condition for the recombination because we have a separate 1 acre tract that provides a 100-foot right-of-way at the entrance where we're providing a divided boulevard. We believe it's compatible with adjacent properties, which are conservation subdivision and single-family lots, as well as some woodlands that we're preserving. And then as he also mentioned, you recently approved the 104, I believe, acre Currituck Reserve tract that adjoins us to the east. This kind of shows the development theme at the entrance. We're going to provide a divided boulevard that will be heavily landscaped and bermed, and provide a very nice entrance feature that will kind of set the tone for the development. And we do want to create an upscale development community. We have 43% actually of this land will be open space, and we want to utilize that effectively. We have, as Mr. Woody mentioned, reduced the density by about a third from the previous approval. So it's about 1 per acre, which actually is below the density that's mentioned in both the land use plan and the Moyock Small Area Plan. We do want to provide for a sense of community. We're providing these roadways that are a little wider with a curb and gutter, a roller curb. We've got a 27-foot roadway section, back of curb to back of curb, with sidewalks on both sides, so that we can kind of create a community where you can walk or bicycle around the community. And we're providing phasing. I'll talk a little bit more about that. We're providing some waterscaping, water features through the development. And we want in a roundabout that will then direct you once you've gotten into the meat of the development. We want you to have kind of a sense of arrival where people really feel like they've arrived at home when they come into this roundabout area. As I mentioned, we have the curb and gutter, the sidewalks. We do have lakes. There's one that's actually was previously a sand mine that's actually going to be reshaped and turned into a community amenity with a park area. In front of it, we are establishing some neighborhood park areas. We're also going to establish some agricultural areas within the open spaces, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. This is kind of the overall plan. As you can see, it does have good traffic flow internally, a good circulation system. We're establishing several different neighborhoods within the community. We will actually have the ability to have 4 interconnections with other properties. One will be immediate, which I already shown you, the main entrance, the entrance then to the southeast will be to Currituck Reserve, which is already in the design process, and two possible connections to other farms to the west and the south.
Mr. Bissell, can I ask you a question before you get past it? Are the water amenities going to be usable for the general public that lives there, or are they going to be purely aesthetic?
Now, the intent is that they be used by the people who live there. If you look, for example, at the bottom of the page, and does this have a pointer? There's a dark green area that's kind of a T shape. That will actually be a neighborhood park area that will be set up with an access to that side of the lake, and the lake will be accessible.
I think that's something that a lot of these subdivisions are missing when they have a large lake like that. There's no plans for accessibility or usage for the people within the subdivisions. So I think that's a good idea.
We did actually receive a comment at the first community meeting recommending that we do that, and we did take that into consideration.
If I could ask one question then on that, when would these things be built? In other words, when you're 20%, 60%, 80% done, when you're totally completed?
Well, it'll depend to some degree on the order in which the phases are developed. We do have 6 phases, and it hasn't been finalized what the order of construction will be. So that park area would be constructed when the road is extended from the roundabout down to that particular area, but I don't know which phase that's in, so I can't answer that right now. There's another park area shown in the upper right corner where there's a kind of a loop road, and that's also across the street from that is where the community mailbox and area will be. Drainage was discussed a little bit. This is kind of an overview of how that will work. There are 4 existing drainage outlets that are available. The stormwater is going to be modeled for this community jointly with the Currituck Reserve as well as the Glenmore Ridge, which is the one that comes after this. So all 3 of those, as well as the county library site, which is also drained by the same drainage system, will be modeled so that we can figure out how to best utilize these drainage outlets. We know that at the Currituck Reserve public meeting, there was concern expressed about the drainage outlet that goes under Tulls Creek Road to the far right here. We're going to provide a ditch and easement that connects that over to another outlet that appears to be a much better outlet with higher capacity over in the middle. There are 2 additional outlets, one at the northwest corner of the site and one at the southwest corner. Anyway, the modeling will show how much water each of those can handle to meet the 2-year wooded condition pre-development standard. We'll have a series of weirs that will control those water levels and figure out where that water wants to go in order to best utilize those outlets. We did submit a fiscal impact statement that's based on typical values of a little under $300,000 for a typical house and lot. That gives us a build out that approaches $80 million. Transfer taxes, stamps, review and impact fees total approximately, actually a little greater than $2.5 million, and this property at build out would then create an annual tax revenue of about $400,000. We did provide detail on the use permit criteria. I'll just kind of briefly go over those. The county health and safety standards will be strictly adhered to. The health department did review and approve all of the lots. We have been talking with NCDOT and to handle the additional traffic load at that entrance, we will be providing a deceleration and a turning lane there on Tullis Creek Road for traffic safety. The development, we believe, is compatible with the adjacent land uses. The lot sizes, we looked at the lots that back up from Tullis Creek Road, and we have matched the widths of those lots with our lots that are backing up in that direction, and also provided a buffer there that will also be planted. There are many consistencies with the land use plan, which I'll go over on the next slide, and adequate public facilities appear to be available to serve this development. There's several areas here where the property appears to be consistent with the land use plan and the Moyoc small area plan, including the appropriate density for the area, the integration of farms and woodlands. We are actually going to do an agri-hood in here, which I'll tell you a little bit more about later. Providing paved roadways and improved drainage, reducing runoff from what currently exits the site, incorporating LID stormwater techniques. And just to kind of elaborate a little bit on what Ben was talking about in terms of the utilization of the wetlands, that is actually a good LID stormwater technique that it'll function sort of like the top portion of a pond that is normally dry. Well, when you have a major storm event, that will fill up briefly and then be metered down at the rate that's allowed by the pre-development runoff standard. So it would be normally dry, flooded for a brief period of time after a heavy rainfall. And that wetland does act as a natural filter of pollutants from stormwater. As I mentioned, we do have 6 phases. Those will average 40 to 50 lots each. The average would be 45 for 275 lots. And some phases will have 40, some 50, so a little more. And then this agri-hood concept. You see some of these green areas, and actually the ones that are shaded kind of gray-green, that are open space areas that are about 100 feet wide that these lots back up to. We're proposing to do agri-hoods there. I don't know if you're familiar with that term. It's derived by combining agriculture with neighborhood. The definition is something along the lines of a community that is situated among or around a farm, much like communities are often situated among or around golf courses or swimming pools. So in a true agri-hood, there's no one owner of the farm, but the entire operation is joint with the responsibilities delegated and the harvest shared. So families can team up to learn and work together on a farm while raising their families and learning lessons from the land. So the agri-hood could become the best way to teach and instill long-term agricultural values to future generations. This farm-to-table living is actually taking root in many places around the country, and we think it's appropriate to try it here. These are just some typical homes that were used in the valuation. As you can see, they're going to be nice homes. Some of them may be as much as 3,000 square feet or more. This shows you how we envision the typical streetscape with the rolled curb and the sidewalk separated by a planter strip. There will not be swales in the front yards. We actually held 2 community meetings. The first one before we actually had tied down the development plan. The comments that we heard at the first meeting were matching the lot widths from the adjacent community, which we did, providing a tree buffer behind the existing lots, which we are doing, utilizing the other drainage outlets as compared to the northeastern outlet, as I already mentioned, as much as possible, which we're doing and will be formalizing in the stormwater modeling. There was a suggestion to look at a second entrance at Tulls Creek Road. That didn't really work out in terms of being able to provide the stacking and the storage and the deceleration and so forth, but we do have the library entrance in progress as the second means of egress. Using the old mine as an amenity, which we're doing, and we're providing good pedestrian connectivity throughout the development into the amenity areas. At the second public meeting, we heard about traffic on Tulls Creek Road, and we are providing, as I mentioned, the deceleration and turning lane to address that. There was a comment about needing more commercial development in Moyock, which we agree is needed, but this probably isn't the best place to do it. There was a concern that there is no agreement to maintain an existing ditch that runs across the back of the lots that front on Tulls Creek Road. And basically there's a property line ditch there, but no maintenance agreement. It's everybody's responsible for his own share. And what we will be doing is providing a drainage easement behind those lots that will, let me find it here. That will connect between those two drainage areas that you see on the right side of the screen. There was a desire to have a tree buffer, which we're providing, and to keep open space behind those lots, which we are doing. We've got, I believe it's about a 50-foot buffer strip in there. And there was a preference expressed for no multifamily in the area, and we are doing, in fact, all single family. So in summary, we are compatible with the neighborhood. We're trying to provide a high-level design in order to preserve future values. We are providing a good utilization, we believe, of that 43% open space. We are trying to create a walking community. We are meeting or exceeding the UDO standards and the use permit criteria, and we believe that we are consistent with the land use plan in many areas, also providing a significant increase to the county's tax base. And with that, I will be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Yes, sir. Are you providing any on-street parking?
No, we're not proposing on-street parking.
What's the width of your road?
27 feet.
And that's from gutter to gutter?
Yes.
The reason I'm asking that is I know in some neighborhoods we've in the past have allowed some streets that were a little narrow and two cars can barely pass on some of those streets, and then the mailboxes are right there, and it's really kind of, I won't say it's dangerous, but you really have to pay attention in some of those neighborhoods. So
I understand. It's exacerbated when you have a swale there that you can fall off into if you're not careful. But we don't have the swales, and we don't have the mailboxes.
So no on-street parking?
No.
Okay.
You also said the word community mailbox, which means not every lot's going to have a mailbox in front of their house?
Right. It's my understanding that no houses will have their own mailboxes according to the post office's current standard for this type of development. They want it to be all cluster mailboxes, so we've provided a place for that with a
Mr.
place where you
Bissell.
can turn in and park briefly and get your mail.
Okay. You mentioned that you had 6 phases, and what's your proposed time of finishing those phases? I know materials and costs and things like that, but some of the board members will not possibly be on the board at that time, so I'm kind of setting us all up for success in the future so that we can have an estimate time of finishing this project.
It's going to be dictated to a large degree by the market, but we would propose hopefully we'd be able to put a phase to record each year. So about a 6-year build out.
So within the next 6 years,
That would be our
market driven. Thank you.
Mr. Woody, I guess probably direct this to you. One of the questions we always get with the developments of this is we were always asked, are we looking at the schools? The impact, and when are we going to be needing to look at that? I mean, with these developments, you keep seeing with 200 here, 100 there. I mean, are we getting? I mean, is this going to put us anywhere close to what we need to start looking at? Are we still okay based on the formulas? And because we're always asked that what about the schools? We're overlooking them. We're overcrowded.
So this particular development, based on our generation rates, we have a rate we assign to houses before they're built. It will generate 68 elementary students, 22 middle school students, and 38 high school students. When the old Currituck Reserve went off the books, it created room in the school capacity formula. So now you're taking that and you're filling that room back up with schools. So I'm not going to tell you that this development is going to cause a need for a school. But again, we're beginning to add lots in the Mohawk area, so it's something that the next couple of years that we need to start thinking about. But again, we're kind of at this point still replacing old lots that were in the formula from back in 2008.
And this is based on the age of people who are moving in. How do you come up with this number?
The county, before I was here, hired a company called Tischler Bice. They're financial land planning consultants and infrastructure consultants. And they did a study of our county and looked at basically what do subdivisions produce in terms of school children, and that's the rate we have. So it's an hypothesis of what we think that these houses will actually produce in terms of school children. Before I was planning director, and the manager can speak to this, the county verified that information. The county did and looked at subdivisions, and after they were built, calculated the number of students to see if they were in fact producing students in accordance with our rates, and they were. The generation rate we use, so the student numbers I just told you tend to be surprisingly accurate to be an estimate. So I think it's a pretty good data set to this point.
I think the important point is that we've never had expected capacities significantly exceed what we had planned on or what that model had generated.
Correct. The model's a pretty good model. So.
And that's based on the fact that, like his 6 years, this wouldn't be, until it's built out, these are the numbers based on when it was finally completed.
Yeah, these are estimated numbers of the completion. Once a building permit's issued, we don't apply these numbers. Or once a certificate of occupancy is issued, they don't go on these numbers anymore, because once the house is actually built, it's deemed to be then it's in the actual ADM for a school, the average daily membership. So when this thing, it's a good test. We come back in 6 years and say, are there 68 elementary school students in this subdivision? It's a pretty simple check to do, and the answer is it tends to be pretty close. So I think that's fairly what you can expect.
Now, here's another question. Are they beginning to model the seniors? Because there's a lot of younger, and a lot of parents are moving in with their kids and vice versa. The consolidation of households. That would be interesting to see how they're tracking.
That's something the staff internally has had some internal discussions about, is maybe when you look at our demographics, our highest growth sectors tend to be in seniors, not in children. So we're actually getting older as a community. So we may find
some of us older than others.
So we may find in 10 years that these numbers are actually overstated. To this point, they've been pretty accurate, but we are aging as a community.
I guess also I saw in the packet, I know everybody says the minimum, and they said 1.5 to 1 house per acre. The actual net is about half acre is the minimum size lot. Am I correct?
Yes, typical lot will be about 20,000 square feet.
And there are some larger though. Okay. And then last but not least, you were talking about when you go across the road for your drainage, Catulls Creek Road, the deceleration and acceleration and the turn lane. Will those be done at the beginning versus when the property is done? So in other words, when construction starts, you'll already have those in for safety?
I think that DOT is probably going to want to have those in place by the time we get to somewhere in the 50 to 75 lot range.
Okay. So somewhere around phase 1, starting into phase 2.
Somewhere in there.
Okay.
And I will note to the board, since this is a large subdivision, that you have the ability through your use permit process to add conditions regarding to phasing of development plans. So the timing and the extent to which phases move forward and what types of infrastructure incorporated into those phases are within the realm of your approval authority as an elected body. So.
Any other questions? Mr. Bissell? All right, hearing none. Thank you, sir. Anyone else representing the applicant wish to make any comments, statements, presentations? All right. Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask the board for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve PB 1611 Waterleigh with the findings that the project will not endanger the public health or safety. It adheres to the standards, including the recommendations that were made by the staff and proposed on the applicant. It should not adversely affect the public health and safety. It will not injure the value or adjoining abutting lands and will be in harmony with the area which is located. Land to the north has been developed into single-family homes. The land to the east has been proposed as conservation subdivision. This tract will be developed similarly with over the 40% land being preserved as open space. The lot widths are similar to those in the adjacent subdivisions. The land will not injure the value of the adjoining and abutting lands. The use will be in conformity with the land use plan and the other officially adopted plans, including the staff findings. One, the land use plans classifies as the area as rural within the Moyock sub-arena area, and the Moyock small area plan classifies as it limited service, which densities proposed between 1.5 acres units per acre. The proposed development density is 1 unit per acre, less density previously proposed when the property was zoned as a PUD overlay district. The land use plans policy that were stated previously in the presentation (1 through 10), and that the use will not exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities, including but not limited to schools, fire, rescue, law enforcement, and other county facilities. Applicable to state standards and guidelines shall be followed, determining the public facilities are adequate. I would also like to include in my motion for approval that we include the presentation that Mr. Bissell included for future use, so that we will have that for future use for the boards. That's my motion.
Question, were there 5 additional staff recommendations associated with this? Mr. Woody?
Yes, there are 5 recommendations made by the Technical Review Committee that staff would request be incorporated into the motion to approve.
I will add those to the motion, the 5 findings from the staff, to be included.
Do they need to be, Mr. McCreed, delineated in the motion itself going forward?
I think that would be the better practice, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Mr. Woody, would you please read those?
Revised plans to be submitted and approved by the TRC prior to issuance of the use permit. A recombination plat must be recorded to identify the property lines of the proposed development by construction drawing submittal. Any payment in lieu of recreation and park area dedication shall be based on the tax property value of the recombined properties. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers designated 404 wetlands shall be reserved for conservation and shall not be used for stormwater management systems. However, stormwater may be collected in the development and allowed to naturally drain to the wetlands. And that the agreed-upon outline between Amata Hoffler, Currituck Reserve, and allied properties concerning the shared drainage infrastructure and easements, rights of way, locations, relocations be followed to develop the 3 adjoining subdivisions under a single drainage plan.
For those to be included in my motion.
Would you be agreeable to the also the deceleration lane and the turn lane be put in before the start of Phase 2?
If I'm not mistaken, that is already included.
I know we discussed it, but I didn't know if it was in it. Isn't it? Okay. And I will second your motion.
All right.
Could you restate that again for me, please?
Certainly.
That's cruel.
Should I have you stand up and wake up this time?
Just
Ditto.
kid.
All right. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none in opposition. PB 1611 Waterleigh passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, next item before us is public hearing and action PB 16-12 Glenmore Ridge. Request for a preliminary plat use permit for a 48-lot conservation subdivision located on the south side of Tulse Creek Road, tax map 22, parcel 78A, Moyock Township. All those contemplating or wishing to give testimony in this matter, please come forward for the purposes of being sworn, as this is a use permit. Is there someone else? I'm sorry. I was getting ahead of myself. Do you and each of you swear that testimony you're going to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Consider yourselves sworn. Mr. Woody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the 3rd tract of land that was in the original Currituck Reserve that we've been discussing tonight. This is Glenmore Ridge. It is a 48-lot conservation subdivision. It's on the other side of the Amata Hoffler Currituck Reserve parcel, just south of the library. Zone single-family mainland like the other tracts. It's also limited service like the other tracts. The property is 48 acres. They're proposing 48 units, so it is a base density of 1 unit per acre, which is consistent with the limited service designation, providing 19.88 acres of open space, which is 41%. I'm not going to go through all the history, but this is part of the 2008 Board of Commissioners approval of the Currituck Reserve Plan development. That zoning designation was removed in May of 2016. This is before you as a conservation subdivision in the SFM zoning district. This project as well is proposing to operate under the drainage agreement between Amata Hoffler, Currituck Reserve, and the developer of this and the Waterleigh project. That drainage agreement is incorporated into the staff's recommendation for approval. The project is served by county water, on-site septic system. In this particular project, they're proposing 5-foot sidewalks that are on portions of the road, as well as they've created a loop system that goes around the perimeter of the development. So this has maybe, instead of just sidewalks on the roads, it has a combination of sidewalks and walking trails in this particular subdivision. You can see on the drawing here, it's very difficult to see, but there's a little red circle that is a crosswalk, and they're agreeing to put in this crosswalk. And so what they're doing, again, is connecting this development to the library site. You cross the road there, and you get to the 8-foot sidewalk and give you access to the county property. So again, they're tying this into the pedestrian system that's been incorporated into the first 2 subdivisions we've discussed. Since it came up at the last public hearing, I'll note for the record this project generates 12 elementary school students, 3 middle school students, and 6 high school students. In this case, the recreation and park area dedication is 1.224 acres. You can see it's the green area that's shown on the map. The TRC is not recommending accepting this dedication and instead accepting the fee in lieu of the dedication. This being an isolated tract of land really doesn't connect to any of the other county assets, and is just 1 acre in size, doesn't provide a lot of usability from the county programming that piece of property. The TRC does recommend adoption of this use permit and approval of the preliminary plat, subject to the conditions of approval in the staff report. I'll read those into the record. Very briefly, the right-of-way must be created and designated for this development that meets NCDOT standards. Right now, the subdivision would have to use an easement as a point of ingress and egress. The right-of-way must be resolved prior to submittal of construction drawings. So what that means is the right-of-way stops at about the library right now, and Currituck Reserve owns the property for which the right-of-way will be built. So somehow, some way, eventually a right-of-way will touch this property, but it won't touch it until it's created by Amata Hoffler Currituck Reserve. So what we're saying is that has to be created before these 48 lots can move forward in the construction drawing approval process. Again, want to incorporate the drainage, the shared drainage infrastructure agreement into this approval. Adjoining the western property line, along the walkway, we want to include a crossing from this development to the sidewalk that is required, the 8-foot sidewalk I mentioned briefly earlier. And then there's 2 comments in this approval related to the engineering of the library site. Number 1 is that the Campus Drive, which is the road, the right-of-way that enters or you enter the library from, it still needs 2 inches of the final top coat of asphalt that haven't been provided. So we have a condition here that says this development nor the Currituck Reserve development can move forward until that 2 inches of asphalt is provided by one of the developers. Another concern of the library has been flooding issues due to elevation that it was built at. We're proposing as a condition that they need to account for the drainage and through their outlet not exacerbate any of the flooding that already occurs at the library. And those outlets need to be accounted for in the modeling they do as part of the construction drawings. So those are the 5 staff recommended conditions of approval. The use permit review standards are on package page 20 of your agenda package. I'm not going to read those, but you can see the information provided by the applicant for the 4 findings that you have to make in order to approve this development. That concludes my presentation, and I can answer any questions you have now or after testimony from the applicant.
So, Mr. Woody, we're only seeing 1 access point at this time?
This development has 1 access point to the primary road. Yes, that's correct.
No proposed stub-outs on any of the property?
No, because the property, if we go back to the aerial photograph, there's they don't have anywhere to stub to. You have the Amata Hoffler subdivision that's adjoining this to the kind of northwest, and of course they'll be able to access that development through the main road that comes in. The properties to the east of this are already platted out large lots off of Old Jewelry Road. So there's nowhere to connect into those properties. Then if you'll notice to the south of this, there's a little strip of land that Amata Hoffler owns that prevents this tract from touching these farms down here. Now I'll note that the Amata Hoffler subdivision does have a access or a connectivity proposed right here. So there's not a lot of places for this subdivision to connect to at this point.
Mr. Chairman, before we go any further, I live on Old Jewelry Road, but I do not back up to this property. I live on the opposite side of Old Jewelry Road. I just want to, and I know this came up once before, that I do live there, and I will have no problem with entering a fair verdict.
Okay, let the record note.
Mr. Chairman, I have one comment. When I just read the notes here and reminded me that when the library was built, it was supposed to be a part of the overall drainage plan for the entire Currituck Reserve. But when Currituck Reserve didn't happen, that created the issues we have at the library. I want to make very sure that that is accounted for. I know you've just said that's one of the conditions, but I want to make extra sure that's one of the things that's accounted for as this goes forward.
Yeah, I think the intent of the TRC and particularly the engineering staff was to make sure that that's incorporated into this. I didn't do the best job of reading those, but I think that's absolutely their intent, and I think they've made that clear to the developer, but you can certainly ask the developer if that's their understanding as well.
I saw him doing his head like this.
So, Mr. Woody, is looking through here. It doesn't look like the fire marshal had any concerns with accessing this for emergencies and fires, and he believed there was adequate access through here for fire and apparatus and stuff, and turnaround points and all that.
Correct. It meets the minimum requirements of the North Carolina Fire Code.
Great. Any other questions of Mr. Woody? Okay. Hearing none, I'll ask the applicant to come forward. For the applicant's representative, Mr. Bissell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have a PowerPoint on this one as well. It's a smaller project, and there are some similarities. So this is a briefer presentation than I gave you on the last one. But as Mr. Woody indicated, it is part of what was originally the Currituck Reserve. It's similar to Waterleigh in several ways. It's a 48-acre tract that also has a density proposed of 1 unit per acre, with lots that are typically a minimum of 20,000 square feet, although they typically are a little more than that. Adjacent properties to both the north and the east are single-family lots, and then the Currituck Library. And then to the west, we have the 100-acre Currituck Reserve parcel that was approved a couple of months ago that's in the process of being designed. Development goals are similar to the others, and we want to create an attractive community. We think we have the ability to utilize some open space effectively for recreation and trails and stormwater management and so forth. On this one, rather than doing sidewalks, we are doing a multi-use kind of a walking trail that runs around the periphery of the site, but then it comes back to the road and, as Mr. Woody stated, then connects to the county's proposed 8-foot multi-use path on the other side of the access road. We do want to establish recreation areas. You can see here we have a nice entrance flanked by a couple of smaller ponds, and then I think it's about a 5 or 6 acre lake that many of the lots will back up to, that will serve as both stormwater management, a waterscape feature, and a recreational amenity for the community. This gives you a little bit more information about the drainage. This shows both the drainage overview that I talked about at the Waterleigh presentation, and also shows what's going on with Currituck Reserve and this property all connected. What you see there on the upper right side in yellow is the access road coming off of Tulse Creek Road that will access both this property and the Currituck Reserve property. What's shown in orange is actually a 100-foot right-of-way, or a 100-foot easement, that was recorded that will be abandoned in favor of the street system that has now been proposed by the reserve. What you see then in blue is connecting the outlet ponds from Glenmore, also drains the library and then runs to the west, and will connect with the pond system that's being proposed for the Waterleigh development. And then we'll have those 4 outlets that I discussed previously available for the discharge of stormwater off-site. So the plan is to include these 3 projects as well as the library site in that stormwater modeling. so that, and right now, the library has only that easternmost outlet available for stormwater that runs under Tullis Creek Road, and that area that was pointed out to us was somewhat problematic. So by connecting all these together, it will have the benefit of the other outlets as well as this stormwater storage capacity that's being proposed. Value similar to the other project. The typical house and lot value is valued at $289,000, about a $14 million build out. Other potential revenue that will be generated. We have, as Mr. Woody indicated, provide us detail about how the use permit criteria have been satisfied in terms of the health and safety standards, the land use compatibility. We have about 9, I think, criteria where the proposed development is consistent with the county's land use plan, the New York Small Area Plan, and it does appear there are adequate public facilities. This is just a listing. Actually, we have 10 conditions. They're similar to the conditions or the consistencies that were outlined with a couple of differences. But I'll point out the TR8 on street connectivity and circulation, that we are providing open space and recreational improvements. We are reducing runoff and as well as protecting water quality. And I do think we have an opportunity to improve the drainage situation that you currently have that's somewhat problematic at the library by incorporating these designs into one master plan. And we will be using LID stormwater techniques. These are a couple of the typical home models that are being proposed for this development. We did have a community meeting. We're actually below the threshold of 50 lots that is required, but we went ahead and scheduled a community meeting anyway and advertised it. And I think we only had one member of the community that actually attended who didn't have any particular concerns about the proposal. In summary, I think we are compatible with the neighborhood and the area, that we'll be providing houses that are comparable in value. We do have nice open space with park and recreation areas proposed. We'll be working on improving the stormwater management of the area. We believe that we meet or exceed the UDO standards and meet all of the use permit criteria for the issuance of a use permit. And we are, as I stated, providing for a consolidated drainage plan, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions?
The buffer size between Old Jury Road at the smallest point, some of them look quite large with the walking trail, but what is the smallest? Is it 50 feet?
That is... I believe it's a little bit less than that. It's more than 50 feet on the where the lots are backing up, and there's 2 lots that have the side facing the Jury Road there off of the cul-de-sac are less than that. Those may only be 25.
Maybe 25, okay. Any plans on trees or anything else? I know there are some existing trees already. For any additional trees for screenage to increase lighting because of the neighborhood? Be the bottom of your screen, such as any additional trees or anything else to help screening for the lights that will emanate from this neighborhood or anything? Because you're backing up to 10-acre lots versus half-acre lots.
Right. Well, we're required to do a farm buffer on the first part of it. You can see where, in that area, we are providing a walking trail down there. I don't know if we've got room to do the walking trail and the drainage and plant trees in there as well. But we could certainly take a look at it.
Okay. Street width. Are we going with the same as the last one, 27? Or?
This is more of a traditional 20-foot street, 5 or 6 foot shoulder, and then a swale, drainage swale on the other side.
So the swale will be on the front.
Pardon me?
Swale will be on the front.
So there will be a swale on the front on this one.
Mailboxes?
But no mailboxes.
So community mailboxes.
That will be a community cluster mailbox system. The Postal Service is just telling us they're not going to do door-to-door delivery anymore.
All right. Any other questions of Mr. Bissell? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The other gentleman, is that Mr. J.R. Allen?
Sir. Good afternoon. I currently live at 799 Tolls Creek Road, and as Mr. Bissell talked about, I guess when we went to the February meeting, we expressed concern for using the ditch to the south side of our property. It appears to be a pretty deep ditch, but once you get about 150 yards in, it flattens out. So if we get a decent storm surge or a lot of runoff, it's going to flood my neighbor's yard south of our property. I was looking at the agenda that y'all have, and it looks like there's a new proposed place to cut the ditch in, the next ditch for drain off. And my concern is with that's private property. It's been used solely for drainage for that field. It's not free flowing for, the regular ditches along Tulse Creek Road. So I had an issue with that. I guess the property's been in the family since the 1600s. It's been an active farm since then. Don't want to take chances in anything happening to that property. There's also a family cemetery back there, and we're just kind of concerned about the whole property as a whole. So that's really my big concern, this runoff.
Mr. Woody, did you bring the site maps off and kind of fill it in?
I'm not sure.
Which property? This right, this small property, and that's proposed, and that's the ditch line that we just had cut. There's no culvert, there's nothing there, so I don't understand that.
He is across the street, across Tulse Creek, and I'm wondering if you meant to speak on the last.
Well, I think when y'all switched it, I think that's what I
think he meant to speak on the last subdivision. I believe this property here, can you see the screen?
Yes, that's the Sanderson property.
Is that the property you're referring to?
I am, yes, sir.
Okay.
The farmhouse is in the center there. It was built in 1801. And I think we're right where the yellow proposed line is. The yellow line, yes, sir, that there. That's our house.
Which I think is an outlet for the.
That does have a culvert, but it's, like I said, it looks like a decent sized ditch when you ride by it along Tulse Creek Road. But as you get back to the pasture where our horse is, it definitely drops down in a parcel of land on the other side. He's constantly trying to kill snakes because that land there is so low. So I know that if we get a lot of runoff, it's going to flood him out.
I think he's referring to this outlet here.
I am.
Which again, I guess I'll remind the board that we do have a condition that the stormwater drainage be managed through all three subdivisions. So it may be testimony that you could consider in this public hearing.
I think certainly should ask the engineer his thoughts on how he's going to address this, if he has any formulated yet. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, I agree. Mr. Bissell, if you could, address the issue relative to his concern. I think it may be applicable to the last, but insofar as the stormwater agreement impacts all three of the developments that we've heard pursuant to this division of this former property, I believe you could be able to speak to it.
It does, and it relates to this proposal because right now the drainage outlet that he's talking about is the only outlet for the library and some of the adjacent land. Whereas, when we connect that existing outlet across the Waterleigh site, to these lakes and these other drainage outlets, then there'll be an opportunity to take water, put probably less water in the outlet that he's concerned about and more in other outlets. We took a look at this one that's kind of in the middle of the screen under the word drainage, and that drainage outlet appears to have significantly more capacity than is being utilized. So our plan would actually be to shift some of the drainage from the outlet that he's concerned about over to the one that has more capacity.
Okay, so then, as our stormwater policy says, it can't be any more post-development than pre-development. What you're saying here is because of the interlocking the stormwater overall system, you're going to reroute some of the water that's potentially in question here with the gentleman's his resident proximity and run it through another route that is under capacity?
That's our intent, and we will be doing the modeling. Of course, we do have the pre-development runoff standard of based on the 2-year wooded condition drainage. So we'll be actually based on that criteria and putting significantly less water in that outlet than goes in there from the farmland drainage.
I mean,
currently,
you understand we've got to make sure that an adjoining property is not going to be harmed by this. And he should have spoke at the previous one instead of this one, but since they're all interconnected, then we have to address it now. But
we're aware of the limitations of that outlet, and we are planning to address it.
I think staff, Mr. Woody and Mr. Weatherly, will make sure they work with you to make sure that we can achieve that goal. Won't you, Mr. Woody?
Yes, sir.
And if recollection, if memory serves me, there is, I think on the previous one, there are agreements relative to the infrastructure for stormwater and other, that all three of these developments are, as part of their requirement, they had to sign off on it and agree to it, so consequently there shouldn't be any impediments for that to work with an overall stormwater plan. Is that correct?
Correct. And the staff, the TRC, when we get to construction drawings and engineer calculations, we'll take a hard look at this to make sure that we're not increasing any impact on adjoining properties or adjoining outlets. So,
okay. Does that answer some of your concerns? Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Bissell. All right, I see no one else to speak. Any additional board questions relative to this matter? All right. Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for a motion from the board relative to PB 16-12 Glenmore Ridge.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to defer to the commissioners from Moyoc.
You guys are all at large, both of you too.
All right. we've had a presentation, we've had questions answered, and we have the matter before us for deliberation and movement. So let us push through and resolve the issue before us. We can also have discussion if there's any concerns. If there's any concerns, any questions, any further questions, we can address those as well.
I'm trying to find the.
Well, I will be the first to make a comment. I'm struggling with the compatibility with the 10-acre lots on one side of them and then the smaller lots to the other side. We have worked really hard to transition from large lots to smaller lots. So I'm struggling with that piece right now because of the 10-acre lots that back up to it. And as Commissioner Hall mentioned, as far as the buffering in between those two, I think that the property itself with the walking paths, it's great, but I can't put my finger on where.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion for approval that the use will not endanger the public health or safety. It will adhere to county health and safety standards, including recommendations made by Albemarle Regional Health Services. The project should not adversely affect the public health or safety. The use will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting lands and will be in harmony with the area in which it is located. Land to the east has been developed into single-family homes. The land to the west has already been proposed as a conservation subdivision. This tract will be developed similarly, with over 40% of the land being preserved as open space. The use will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting lands and will be in harmony with the surrounding property. The use will be in conformity with the land use plan or other officially adopted plans. More specifically, policy HN1, HN2, HN3, TR12, TR8, WS6, PR6, and WQ3. WQ4, WQ5. The use will not exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities, included but not limited to schools, fire and rescue, law enforcement, and other county facilities. Applicable state standards and guidelines shall be followed for determining when public facilities are adequate. And according to staff, Currituck has adequate facilities to serve the proposed subdivision. And staff had, five founding
recommendations.
Staff recommendations that Mr. Woody has already read into the record. That is my motion.
Is that your motion? I will second that motion. Any discussion?
I guess just one question then, Mr. Woody, the 10-acre lots and maybe Commissioner Hall could address this as well. Has there been any public negative comments or anything that you've heard?
I have not received any comments from the public on either of these subdivisions.
That I've heard, and again, I was trying, and Commissioner Gilbert, I think, hit it right on the nose exactly where I was trying to go to, but trying not to sway the way. Additional lighting from the new neighborhood. There are some trees, but additional buffer would be a great thing, because I don't know if this neighborhood is going to have street lights all the way through or just on corners, which would draw extra light to an area that is 10 acres. So that's why I was asking about the additional tree buffer, and that was for the lighting.
I don't think they have any lighting in the back.
So there's no street lighting at this time proposed? Okay. That was really the main concern I heard, was because they didn't want to be looking at their backyard, all of a sudden it's lit up.
Okay.
And Mr. Bissell, you can probably speak to this. There's probably more lighting that would be coming from the library on this property versus this development. Would you, in your expert opinion?
I would say that's correct.
Well, at this point, we have a...
Any street lighting.
But otherwise, the neighborhood had no problem because it was less houses and larger lots that I've heard.
All right.
Yeah, and we can offer the trees along those two lots that are close to the property line there, or some sort of a buffer.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second before us. Olin?
Mr. Chairman, there's one last thing that everyone needs to remember is what was previously approved in 2007, 8, whatever, was like 1,000 and some lots, and this has been, the developer withdrew that to come back with something at like half or so of what was previously approved on larger lots, and I think it's going to be a much better fit on that large acreage of land than versus 1,000 and some houses. So everybody needs to remember that's why we're here today.
All right, with that comment, again, standing before us is a motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none in opposition, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Board appointments have been pulled from this agenda. We have now before us the consent agenda.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
I second it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
on the approval of the minutes, a discussion.
Yes, sir.
The one thing I wanted to make sure was the fact that on the second part of our meeting on the night of August 15th, we were unable to have a video of that portion. I just wanted that put into the record, because normally what we have here is we have a rough items of what occurred during meetings, but we don't have exact wording because it would be very lengthy. But we've always been able to fall back on the video. This time we don't have that. I just want that into the record, please.
All right, any discussion? Just as a question, it begs the question, and I'll just ask it. The fact that there is no video, ipso facto speaks for itself that there was no video.
Correct. I agree.
All right. What would be the purpose then of putting that in the meeting? Just
If somebody were to go back and say, I want to see what occurred, there wouldn't be any video, so if they came back and they could at least read the minutes to realize there weren't any. Sometimes people want to go back and review what occurred or what didn't occur.
all right. So would that be it would be in the form of a motion then, would it not, before the board in order to add that to the minutes? Because the minutes of the board is the property of the board. And so any alterations of the minutes would require a majority. Is that correct?
I think that'd be correct.
All righty. So is that the form of then a motion?
Please, yes, it's a form
All
of
right.
motion.
You already have a motion on the floor
And a second.
proper second.
Oh,
So
Did-
what Mr. Hall would need to do is ask to amend my motion and get a proper second. Correct?
That's correct. Commissioner Hall can make an amended motion, which would be voted on, and that would, he would want to make a motion to amend your motion by adding what it is that he desires. That would then be voted on, and if it passes, would become the main motion that's pending.
Commissioner O'Neill, I would ask to amend your motion to read that no video exists for the second part of the meeting. So if somebody were to go back and look to see what occurred, they would know automatically there wouldn't exist, and then no questions would be asked because it just doesn't exist. I would ask you to amend your motion.
We got to have a second to your amendment to my motion, and that gets voted on.
okay. So now we have before us an amended motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All right. We have a motion and a second before us. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none in opposition, motion passes. With that, I need a
On my motion. Now we vote on my motion.
Now the motion,
With that
now
amended to
Commissioner
my
O'Neill's
motion.
motion has been amended, so you now will vote on the amended main motion.
All right. So before us is the amended main motion. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none in opposition, motion passes. Thank you. Getting a whole lot of amendments and emotions. All right. Commissioners' report. Normally what we do, or normally what I do, is to start with the commissioners and end up with me. One of the things that we were going to report, or that was going to be reported tonight, during the process of working on that, I did some additional due diligence. relative to information that I think would be important, informative for the community to hear, to be made part of the record. So I will start with that, in as much as what I'm going to bring up here are matters that the entirety of the board worked on to varying degrees, but in totality, we all worked on this and moved it forward. At any time when I bring these up, if a commissioner wants to jump in and make comments on it, because there'll be some who are more familiar with it, even though we all worked on it, I would ask that they do that. One of the things going forward here, we do a lot of things in this county, and we bring amenities, we try to bring economic development to the county, we try to address quality of life issues, but all of these things cost money. Everything's about money. And this board and the board prior to this board were very sensitive to taxes and were reticent on raising taxes. So one of the things that when I was putting this together, I saw is that we have an extremely effective staff that has helped this county and has helped this board move forward in bringing these aforementioned things that I have described, whether it be economic development initiatives, whether it bring quality of life issues or other things to the county. I want to recognize as we go forward, these are things that have come to fruition in the last year. Now, they may have their in the incubator, if you will, may have been a little bit longer than that, but they've come to fruition during this last year. The first one is the new inclusive playground in the community park, and it featured adaptive equipment that can be used by the children with special needs, including wheelchairs, equipment that will also be placed in Sound Park, which is in the lower part of the county. It'll be a second Liberty Swing, and that's tentative, or that's scheduled to be placed in there in October. This was as a result of the Trillium grant. Now, a grant is money that the county applies for and tries to justify it, and it is monies that come to us from outside of this county. They impart no tax implications or requirement. I don't know if it's a proper word to say it's a gift, it's a grant. In this case, for the Inclusive Playground and Community Park, that grant totaled $198,570. Any of the commissioners want to speak to that? Because that was just recently, we had a ribbon cutting, so if any of the commissioners want to speak to that, because I know some of y'all were there.
Well, I will speak to it because we've got some special needs children in the county, and particularly the Etheridge children, both Jessica and Cameron. As long as I've been a commissioner, they have been, requesting some additional facilities for their special needs children. And last Tuesday, being at that ribbon cutting and having Cameron be there to help cut that ribbon for this facility was just an amazing experience, and the look on his face, the smiles, the happiness, just the thrill of being able to be on a swing and kind of just be like an average kid. It was an incredible experience, and those of you that were out there, we're just very blessed in this county, and that opportunity shows the hard work that our staff and we as commissioners here and previous have done to work towards providing just great gifts. And even though this was a grant, this particular incident was a gift. And each one of us should just recognize that and just appreciate each and everything that we do have. So I can get very passionate on that, but Mr. Beaumont and Mr. Payment were both also there, and it was just an incredible experience.
The other thing I would throw out there is that this was the fruition of a need that was brought forth by residents of the community, the Etheridge family, and through no fault of the county, we had new playgrounds that were not completely inclusive. And so when that issue was brought forward, kudos go out to Jason Weeks and the Parks and Rec department, because Jason was new to that, the need itself and how that might be implemented and integrated within an existing playground. And kudos on him. They wrote the justification for that grant, and I would suggest to you that grant was written very early in the Trillium process. In fact, probably it may have even before the Trillium took over the role that they hold now with the services within this region. And I serve on that Trillium board, so I've anxiously awaited Currituck's turn at cutting that ribbon. But I've watched as they have been installing those same or very similar parks throughout this entire region. So kudos to Jason for actually, writing the grant, and our county's thanks to Trillium for providing the facility that it's world class. It is world class. And I think the classic was when Mr. Etheridge stepped on because it's a bouncy kind of cushion surface that this facility exists on. He was not expecting that surface. I think he expected, I don't know, but it was. If you haven't seen it and you're out there at the park, it is a blessing to the county.
Good, thank you. The other item I'd like to point out. I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you guys covered it well.
All righty. The second grant that I'd like to highlight is the one that we've got for the multi-purpose fields in Maple for soccer, football. It was the grant for the Community Park PARTF grant that provided to the county $265,000 as part of the funding for this park. And would anybody like to speak to that?
I can speak to the fact that over the years the county has applied for many of those PARTF grants that the state for parks and recreation, and I don't know how many we've received in the past, Mr. Scanlon, but there's been a few of them, and they've been utilized throughout the county to provide some recreational facilities, and then the county would have to ante up the difference or the balance. But the county several years ago took upon itself to aggressively pursue parks in different parts of the county. Unfortunately, I don't see them utilized as much as I'd hoped they would be, but the county's been very successful in getting those grants, and we've used them at boating facilities as well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Even the one there at Coinjock, where they've put that nice gazebo and walkway along the water. And I couldn't name all the places that we've got those grants over the years, but the state's been very good to us in awarding those grants and saved the taxpayers quite a bit of money on a lot of the parks that we've developed over the years.
And the other thing I would throw out is it's not just with the state entities as well. One of the first grants and awards that this county got, that I was aware of there, so because they probably went back significantly further than that, had to do with the company that did stadium lighting, and the county went out and got a grant from the company that produced the lighting, and they donated to this county the ability to have nighttime activities. I'm trying to remember where they wound up. Sharpsburg?
Well, it was under a program to light all of our fields throughout the whole county, and I think we have been successful doing that. That particular grant ended up providing the lighting at Knott's Island.
Oh,
that's where those lights ended up.
Exactly right. So, and that was from a commercial vendor. So, they're out there, and anyway.
Okay, the next item I'd like to highlight would be the parallel runway, Maple Airport. Taxiway.
Easy.
Taxiway. You got an aviator here, buddies. I stand corrected. And that was a 90% grant, meaning that it was 90% of the funded project, and that was for $1,938,000 $1,938,662.
And Mr. Chairman, can I briefly let me explain to you what that changed? And I had flown in and out of Currituck County before. What that meant was when you landed on the runway, you had to turn around and go back up the runway in order to get off the runway. So from a safety point of view, either one of two things happened. Either typically somebody had to try and do things to slow down their coming in and landing because there was another airplane on the runway, or you had the potential of it, we call it a wave off and having to take off and then come back around. So there's types of aircraft and there's certain events that would absolutely not come to Currituck County because they can't afford to have their aircraft standing on the runway. Either they couldn't turn around and come back, or it was deemed to be unsafe, and therefore they would not come here as a matter of process. So this was one of those modernizations that's necessary to continue to run a very nice airport, number one, as well as improve, or preclude the possibility for an accident due to hitting another aircraft on the runway.
Okay, so that would, of course, then it would have a significant impact for future economic development pursuant to the use of that airport and the surrounding structures and so forth. All right, the next item is the public access for the Waterleigh boat ramp. And we teamed with WRC, Wildlife Recreation Center, for $48,775 in a grant. The last grant that I want to highlight was actually the one that precipitated that I was going to announce tonight to the public that caused me to go back and look at all these others. And that's the Clean Water Management Trust grant to the county. For those of you that will remember, this board undertook, and it has been going on for some years. It didn't just happen. I think there's been some discussions and conversations, and Dan, you can jump in, or Commissioner O'Neill, if you remember it beyond past that. Discussions with the Wildlife and Fisheries, federal government, to procure the land that's just adjacent to north of the ramp there at Corolla, going northward on the beach. We've had problems going forward, intermittent problems with storm surge, northeasters, and whatever that sometimes impacted and still does the ability of the people who reside up in Corova or tourism. And we began talking in discussions with Wildlife and Fisheries about a way to procure this land. And it came to culmination, I guess, about a year. Last summer, I think we were working on it, negotiating, and for a price. And this board went forward and committed itself. At that time, our staff, identified a grant that was out there that we could apply for that would pay for half of this property. And they started working on it. And I want to highlight Sandy Salambean, who I believe is Mr. McCree's paralegal.
That's correct.
Who wrote this grant. And why I remember this so well is the county manager, Mr. Scanlon, and myself left here dark early last Tuesday. I think I left my house at about 5. And off we went to Raleigh because Tuesday, on September the 13th, the committee was meeting for the Clean Water Management Trust, and they had 50-some projects before them that they were being asked to fund. Mr. Scanlon and I went up there to represent Currituck for this, and I'm proud to announce tonight that we basically came home with $500,000 that will help offset the purchase. It'd be half of the purchase of this property for 720 acres. That's basically ocean to sound. That will ensure that the residents of our northern beaches will continue to have access to get to their property, as well as tourism. And there are other future boards. The very next board certainly has the opportunity to pursue other uses going forward that we've identified, and I think it'll be tremendous for the county. Anyone like to speak to any of this? Well,
I hate to keep speaking.
That's all right.
But this goes back many years, many years. The Fish and Wildlife owns a huge, large tract of land up on the northern beaches where we have the Corolla wild horses. They have always considered the Corolla wild horses to be feral animals. So in other words, their number one priority was to protect the birds and other animals that are on their property, even to the point at one time they were putting fences to keep the horses out of their property, which was their mission. So we've had that it's been a conflict with their mission versus what the reality is. We were fortunate over the years to have some managers up there that worked with the county and worked with us to try to help us with the horses and so forth. But what this does is, by purchasing this property, by getting this grant with our money with this property at 720 however many acres, it gives us, I believe, an ocean to sound access, Mr. Scanlon.
It does.
And what that will do is it'll make sure that we always have access to the northern beaches. If, as right now, as it's accessed by the beach, in the event that something happens, there could be an access behind the dune lines to get north and south. But the other thing it does is it provides a large tract of property that the horses will never have to worry about being considered feral animals again. And it allowed Fish and Wildlife to get some property that was more consistent with their mission, which is the preservation of certain bird species. And they were allowed to acquire a piece of property on Knott's Island called the Flyway Tract. So we worked out a land swap with that grant and the money we put with it, and it really gives us some good property over on the Outer Banks that in the future the county would be able to put restroom facilities in the northern beaches, but also make sure that the horses always have a place to be and a place to go, because there's 3,400 house lots approved up there, so the footprint's going to continue to get smaller. And so this was in my estimation, a good thing that the county did to make sure that the mission and vision of preserving the horses on the Outer Banks can continue.
And additionally, if a future board so decides and deems it warranted, there's also the potential of making a vehicle-free beach for those who would rather not share the beach with vehicles. That'll all be for future consideration. But the sum and total of these grants for projects that come to culmination this year was $2,951,007. That's roughly equivalent to, my math could be off here, about 5.5 cents of ad valorem tax that have brought economic potential for economic development, ecological stability for the wild horses, access to our northern beaches, and of course the economic development was for the runway and the sports for soccer and whatever. That's tremendous, and I want to commend the staff because it didn't just happen, and there's not a truck riding around that pulls up to the front door and throws out bags of money. It takes a lot of work to write grants and to write successful grants. And what they're bringing, they're working smarter, our staff. So I want to recognize them. I also want to recognize the board for moving these things forward, to backing them and having the vision to go forward to do this. So it's reflective of a tandem, I call a symbiotic relationship between a good board or good staff and a board that has a degree of vision and will support these things. Next, real briefly, I want to point some other things that have come to fruition this year. They weren't grants.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can I just interject really quick on the topic of grants? I want to add to that the grants that the fire departments have received. The volunteer fire departments have written a lot of grants over the years. I know Lower Currituck has, and that has saved the county a lot of tax dollars as well.
Absolutely.
With getting apparatus, SCBA.
Absolutely.
So I just want to congratulate their efforts as well, because they're also contributing well with their grants. So.
Absolutely, very good point. And real quickly, in the last year, well, next month we'll be dedicating the opening of a new baseball and softball complex here in Maple. The county recently completed 2 miles of a multi-path project in Corolla that the staff worked very hard on. I know Eileen put a tremendous amount of effort and time and in it, as well as other staff. And, of course, less than a year ago, we opened and stood up the Currituck County Animal Shelter, which is a fantastic facility with tremendous staff. And all of this, the grants and these projects that I just talked about, which come to well over, approaching $6 million, were funded without the increase of any taxes to our citizens. None. And we did this while maintaining the lowest tax rate in northeastern North Carolina. I think that's remarkable. Currituck County is in the top 5% when rated for fiscal soundness and well-being. These are by agencies such as the S&P, Moody's, Finch. Our rating is AA, which is it's high. It's very high. We were designated AA. When was this? About a year and a half ago, Mr.
We were increased, about a year and a half ago.
About a year and a half ago. This resulted, just a mere upping of our credit as a county, allowed for the county to renegotiate an outstanding loan to save the taxpayers of this county approximately $1 million in interest. So, I guess when people sometimes wonder what we do up here, we're very blessed and fortunate with an outstanding staff and good commissioners that can work together with that. And I'm proud of it, and I think we all are, and we've all worked on it. Each one of us have provided effort, expertise, or time, as well as, of course, the staff. And I keep commending the staff because I don't think we could not write these grants. I couldn't. I won't speak for anybody else. But I just wanted to bring that out. I think we're remiss in not doing this more often to let the people know. And with that, I will go into now the Commissioner's report. Commissioner O'Neill.
You get to talk again.
Yes.
I do apologize. I won't be able to talk too much longer.
I appreciate the information that you brought forward tonight. I also agree that folks sitting at home a lot of times don't know some of the good stuff that happens. All they ever see is the circus. One of the things I would like to talk about, Mr. Chairman, it was alluded to briefly tonight. I've got 4 meetings left after tonight, so I'm not going to be here a whole lot longer. But I will tell you, one of the things Currituck is always taking pride in is planning for facilities and planning for the future. And then when the needs are there, they step up and they fulfill those needs. I would implore that the remaining board members after December, along with the new board members, start looking in the Moyock area to secure some property for future growth. Anyone that's been keeping an eye on Currituck and watching these meetings and participating knows that most of everything that's going on in development and growth is in the Moyock area. While I do understand that we're in good shape with the schools, I'm not saying go out and buy a huge tract of land today and start building a school. What I'm saying is we need to buy a tract of land in the near future to plan for the future. It's not getting any cheaper. They're not making any more. and you're not going to be able to buy a strategic piece of land without some planning that you start now. Now, the manager has always been good about coming to the board when it was time to do something like that, and the board has always responded. I've worked with so many different people over the year, and everyone's always responded, but I do believe that that's something that the future board is going to have to start looking into, is some type of strategic land purchase in the northern portion of the county. My next item is the Kite House, where we just talked about these 3 subdivisions tonight. When Armada Hoffler was here last time for their subdivision, it was asked what were their plans with the Kite House. So now we're getting ready to wrap that house up by the library that sometimes needs the grass mowed, and it's just sitting there vacant. At some point, something is, for preservation purposes or something, you're not going to build a whole bunch of new houses around that old house and it just fall down. What, Mr. Woody, I don't know if you've ever gotten a plan or an answer back from them as to what they're looking to do with that, but I would be interested if you could follow up on that if you, in fact, have not heard from them.
I have heard from them. They have hired a local landscape company to regularly maintain the grass and yard. One thing we get complaints about is the state of the lots. They said they've contracted with the local company to do that. They actually are considering selling the property, and they also offered the property to the county.
So we can fix it.
Yeah, they offered us the opportunity to fix it. That's correct.
Put a school there.
Yeah.
And what my suggestion was is to continue to maintain the property, and then once the Historic Preservation Commission is formed, I said the county probably would not take the property, but there may be ways to identify a nonprofit or some active group that may be willing to take on that as an historic rehab project. But at the very least, they should be maintaining the property at this point, and they've agreed to do that.
Okay.
But I don't think Amada Hoffler intends to use or fix that property. They'd rather get rid of it.
Okay. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Payment.
Well, first of all, let me just say I agree with Commissioner O'Neill. He and I grew up and we saw the schools evolve while we were in the systems over the year, and I think the county has done a good job of addressing the needs when they were there, and I'm sure Mr. Woody is watching this closely. But yeah, we need to start looking into the future. We need to start planning. Planning is a positive thing, so yeah, I would agree with that. Secondly, I'd like to address the board and the audience out there and the residents of Currituck. I'm also on the Department of Social Services board. And I was recently at a meeting, and they'd asked me, and I offered to bring this to the commissioner's report tonight, that one area of the county and the residents, some of the barriers and some of the resources was in the accessing mental and behavioral health services, which a lot of our residents had to go to Dare County, Pasquotank, and even Virginia for some of these resources. Well, the Trillium Health is getting ready to install a kiosk in the Barco Library. It should be installed later this week. It's going to allow the residents of Currituck to go there. It's going to be it's going to be confidential computer. You could do your own screening. It's going to have a private phone there, 24/7 staffed call center. It's going to be unique for this county to finally get something like that, and I know they're excited about that. But it's going to provide another resource that the county has, for our citizens, and I just wanted to pass that out there. So there will be a ribbon cutting coming that the commissioners can attend, and there's going to be more. You can go to the trilliumncaccesspoint.org, get more information on it. But that's just I wanted to pass that along to y'all here, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Gilbert.
As Mr. O'Neill charges me quite a lot with my event calendar, the summer's over and the
Public information officer.
and the public information officer in training has a few things. First of all, I want to reach out and give kudos to the folks that organized the Heritage Day event. I was out there Saturday probably for about 8 hours, and it was just a wonderful opportunity. And I want to reach out and just give kudos to Cola Lynch, who organized that event along with Michelle Ellis and Tom Harrell. The entire time that I was out there, I did not see one of them sit down at all for the whole 8-hour period. Even during the rodeo, they were out and about running, just doing an amazing job. So I want to give kudos to them. They're under the direction of Tamron Kugler, who is our tourism director, but her staff did an amazing job with the organization of that event. I had the opportunity to speak to some of the participants and judges for the Bowl and Barbecue contest, but I will let Mr. Beaumont speak further on that part of it. Our professional griller. But again, I cannot thank our staff and the organization skills that happened, because one of the judges said that this was the most organized event as far as the barbecue event, and just gave kudos for the beautiful facility that this event was held in. And again, I have to give those who give the credit to those who purchased that property. And I mean, there was a lot of controversy with that, but this piece of property, the Rural Center, Currituck County Rural Center, CCRC, has become just an amazing piece of property. And if you haven't had an opportunity to get out there, you need to take a little ride down Spot Road and see another piece of heaven that we have here in Currituck County, because it is just an amazing piece of property, and the event, again, was outstanding. So Tamron is here in the audience, so just kudos to you and your staff. In addition to that, Tuesday, kind of going chronological order here, the Currituck Ruetan is having their fall spaghetti dinner. So those of you that do not want to fix dinner Tuesday night, you can swing by the Crawford Fire Station between 5 and 7:30. It's new this year. They're actually going to have a drive-through service, so you don't have to stay. You can just drive through, just as you would any other quick food service. So please support the Ruetans, the Currituck Ruetans.
Tomorrow, Tuesday?
That's tomorrow, Tuesday, as in tomorrow night. So those of us that aren't going to get dinner tonight, we can wait and have a good dinner tomorrow night with the Ruetans. Another note, on October 1st, we have the Currituck County Rabies Animal Services Rabies Clinic. This is free to any Currituck residents. You will need to bring your ID, and it's $8 per shot for non-residents. This is October 1 from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. at the Currituck Judicial Center. In past, what they've done is they've lined you up just by vehicles and just kind of made a long line. So it is a very interesting day, but this is in affiliation with the Millioc Animal Hospital. If you bring your pet out for your rabies, you will need to show proof of your rabies to receive a 3-year booster. But what an opportunity. Again, it's free to Currituck residents along with your ID. October 15th, Currituck Kids is sponsoring the first annual Scarecrow Fest. That'll be from 11 to 3 at Currituck Barbecue. This is an opportunity for you to bring your family out for a family event to build a scarecrow. Currituck Kids is providing all the materials. There's a $25 donation if you'd like to build a scarecrow, and the frames that are being used for the scarecrow were built from the shop at the high school. So they've actually taken that project on and built the frames for the scarecrows. So please come out October 15th and help Currituck Kids and enjoy a family event. October 29th, please mark your calendar. The animal shelter's having the first Barktoberfest. And what this will include from 12 to 4 at the animal shelter is to provide education, give citizens an opportunity to come and visit the animal shelter. If you haven't had an opportunity to come out and see the shelter, it is an amazing facility. As Mr. Griggs alluded to earlier, it's just another piece of property that we have built, you will have an opportunity to look at what kind of volunteer opportunities they are. And, I've had time and time again, now that I'm on the animal shelter advisory board, for people come to say how therapeutic it is to just to go out and walk a dog for a couple hours, and not have to take them home with you right away. But 90% of the people that come out and volunteer and walk a dog or play with the kittens or the cats end up taking them home. And I have one volunteer that is there religiously every Monday, and now she's going a second day, and she is now fostering kittens so that they can get to the point where they can be adopted. So on the 29th of October, there's going to be some vendors out there to educate. Moyock Animal Hospital is going to be one of the vendors out there, and also with the animal shelter. At our last meeting, we have started discussing preliminary stages of building a dog park. So we have property, we have some fencing, so we're in the preliminary stages. But another exciting opportunity for our animal lovers in Currituck. And I think that will do it for this time. Is that enough, Mr. O'Neill?
What date is Thanksgiving this year?
It's the last Thursday of the month. That's not a on my agenda. All the other opportunities are.
That was a trick question.
This is just October. I haven't started November yet. Okay,
We're not in October.
Next month.
Commissioner Beaumont.
Well, I arrived at the CCRC significantly. I actually participated in the barbecue cook-off and thought that it was all about taste, but clearly there were other qualifiers. Presentation to me was never a concern when feeding the masses. It was anyway. So,
And we had the fire department there running for you to help too.
they had an ambulance there just in case. So, but I too circled around and I talked to several of the participants, and echoing what Commissioner Gilbert said. They said it was the nicest venue they'd been at all season, and couldn't wait to come back next year. We've already been warned that while we may have had one or two of the big boys here this year, we're going to get a bunch of the big boys here next year, and with them comes the Food Network. So we expect to see there were 17 entries this year. Next year, it's going to get even and better. So that was fascinating. The bull riding rodeo, or the rodeo, including the bull riding, you got to see everything. Bull stomp the rider, hit the horse, knock the guy off the horse, chase a clown. What more could you ask for out of a rodeo? And then but the one thing I felt like it was a NASCAR race, and the one thing I could tell you that and it was the strongest takeaway I had from the rodeo that evening, and that's the announcer put into perspective how grateful we are or should be as a country that from the ability to elect people. He led the entire group there in prayer for safety for our leaders, our state, our country, the riders, the participants, and you know what? The previous week I watched the opening of the professional football season, and it was with disgust that we've turned the system that generates the income that some of these stars earn, and really soured me really soured me to that aspect of professional sports. And I'm gonna tell you, I am now a pro bull riding fan from the stands. But it was an amazing thing to watch. I never knew we could get that many people at that park. So, Tamron, they need to start planning now for what's going to happen, because it's only going to grow. I think we've really put a peg in the ground, and I can't wait till next year. and I won't be cooking.
Mr. Chairman, to add to that, Mr. Beaumont, I've got statistics from the for the counts. They sold 200 approximately 200 pre-sale tickets for the rodeo, and they sold 800 tickets the day of the event, which brought in about $18,875 in sales and sponsorship. So that was the first time. So just kudos again.
Outstanding. Commissioner Hall.
As Chairman Griggs alluded to, all of us go to Raleigh and other places throughout the state in order to help promote and take care of the needs of Currituck County with agriculture, with fishing and hunting, with tourism, with our citizens, with small businesses. And we're always lobbying and trying to get the things that are best for us. And I think they do a great job. Just recently, I was able to take and go to Washington, D.C. Commissioner Payment is in charge of the Economic Board, and he wasn't able to make it, but the Chamber put on an event, and we went up and met with 13 congressmen, both senators, and another congressman as well, in 2 days. It was a whirlwind. We talked about what the needs of Currituck was. We talked about what the state and what the federal government could do for us. And I'll be briefing the other commissioners on that very soon. But we're always out there trying to find things that we can do to help us, to keep our taxes low, and to keep businesses strong. And that's it.
Thank you. I, too, had opportunity to go to Raleigh the week before, requested to go to an agricultural forum in which the governor, Governor McCory was there. Our agricultural secretary, Steve Troxler, was there. It was outstanding to hear both the governor, particularly the governor, but all of the people there. And I want to address my comments specifically to the governor and to the Secretary of Agriculture. He was bringing out and pointing out the vast importance of agribusiness to the state. And he was doing so, he was showcasing it or setting it forth, highlighting the need for interconnectivity in the state in order to get our products to the ports, whether it's the port of Wilmington or whether it's to the port in Virginia. And he was pointing out the importance of this in expanding our agribusiness in this state to foreign shores. And he was speaking to the increase that his administration has had and the state has had by $5 million in agricultural trade, and continued to highlight the importance of the interconnectivity for the entirety of the state. And he spoke to, and I did earlier to the 4-Hers, that we are being asked to do more with less when it comes to producing food. And when I say we as a country, but North Carolina has always been in the top of producing. He then went on to highlight the investment that his administration and the state has made in the 2 land-grant universities, NC State and A&T, for investment in technology and scientific study to promote agricultural efficiency, and that was good. The point of the interconnectivity seemed to me to be the most, it's the most fascinating, particularly as it will affect northeastern North Carolina. Some of us on this board have been involved in working on this process, and there will be some that will continue on that will have to carry, because it's not going to be a process that's going to come to fruition overnight. With that, one of our commissioners that has worked the most on this, I'll ask him to give some points, because this is very important to the economy of this region and to Currituck and to northeastern North Carolina. With that, I'll ask Commissioner O'Neill, if he will, to bring us up to speed.
I thought we were getting ready to adjourn. Very briefly, The I-87 corridor that the governor has proposed, which is we know traditionally as the 1764 corridor, the running into Virginia, 17 runs north to south. What that will do is that will open up northeastern North Carolina, and the port will be able to expand and create economic opportunities for northeastern North Carolina. Essentially, what's going to happen is the port is been funded to dredge the channel to, I believe it's 50-some foot deep, which is what's required for those super, I'll call them super tankers. I forgot what the proper, the super container ships that are going to be coming through the Panama Canal. Most of the ports on the East Coast will not be able to handle those ships. I believe New York is in the process of right now building a bridge over. They have a bridge that's too low for those ships that they're going to have to replace a bridge, and they're building a bridge over top of the bridge, I believe, to remove the lower bridge. But Hampton Roads is going to be positioned with the opening of the Panama Canal and those super freighters to be a big player on the East Coast. And with the opening of the I-87 corridor running north to south, right now currently Hampton Roads is pretty much a cul-de-sac. They need an ingress and egress that runs north and south, so this will help them. But what will happen is they'll be able to take the products out of the Hampton Roads and distribute them south with this interstate connection. But when they take those products south, they'll have empty containers that they'll be able to fill up with North Carolina sweet potatoes, peanuts, corn, and a lot of the agriculture products that we produce, as well as furniture and other things that we produce here in North Carolina. They'll be able to then take that north and put it on those containers and open up new markets for North Carolina. So northeastern North Carolina is poised to, in particular Currituck, Pasquotank, and Camden are poised to benefit greatly from this road project that the governor has proposed, and it's vitally important that Virginia gets on board with it. And I believe Congress approved the interstate designation. They didn't provide any funding, but I do believe North Carolina has appropriated some money to start some preliminary studies to get going with it. So that's going to be a big deal for northeastern North Carolina and the folks that we represent, or future boards will represent, and people that live here, especially for our younger generation. Maybe they will actually start having some economic opportunities a little bit closer to home. So
very good, very good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, because that's you put a lot of effort in that. And I'll abbreviate the rest of this because I see people are getting antsy. Yes, there is more. There's always more. The governor went on to speak about the federal intrusion into state governments relative to taking control of the waters, and specifically the waters in North Carolina. If our audience will remember, and those at home, this board a month and a half ago created a resolution going forth decrying the federal intrusion into waters. The governor pointed out at this meeting that it would be disastrous for North Carolina, because what they're actually talking about is taking over or intruding into ditch systems. It's just not the ocean or the sounds. They're talking about ditch systems, which would be potentially detrimental to agriculture. It would give the federal government, the EPA, and those agencies the ability to come in and have a negative impact going forward on our agribusiness. And again, in his words, it would be disastrous going forward. And we got out ahead of that by sending a resolution some time back. All right, I will abbreviate the rest of it. It was very informative, and that's where I come up with the statistic that the average age of farmers in North Carolina now is 57. With that, I'll ask the county manager for his report.
Just quickly tonight, it several times has been mentioned about school capacities and planning for the Moyock area. I'd like to report to the board that last week, for about half of a day, the county staff had led a workshop with the Board of Education and the staff of the Board of Education to start looking at visioning growth, made sure we went over the adequate public facilities ordinance with them, how we do our school generation, how we look at our capacity numbers, and started the beginning process of working with them on looking at planning strategically where our schools could be located or should be located throughout the county, with an ongoing effort to coming back in over the next couple of years and start talking about where we're going with the next school and having that plan in place on acquiring the property, working through designs, and actually building the next school. So those efforts are underway.
I did not know that. See, I told you he was on it.
I tell you. All right. That concludes the county manager's report. Next item on the agenda is public comment. I have 2 people signed up. At this time, I will ask Mr. John McCauley to come forward. Is he here? I guess not. Mr. Steve Fentress? I guess we bored him. It's all right. That's the. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Come forward, please. State your name and address, if you would, for the record.
My name is James Crozier, 112 Seahorse Lane, Grandy, Walnut Island. I wanted to take a couple of moments. I know I'm allotted 5 minutes, and I'll take no more. But I wanted to address the Board of Commissioners. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for the time. One, I'd like to commend you on everything that you do for economic development, the grant programs, even the 4-H system, which I remember as a child here in Currituck County. I'm glad to see that the 4-H is still going strong and that there's a great involvement from the community. Now, all good taxpayers have to rain on your parade occasionally. And that's what I'm really here to do. My wife and I plan on retiring down here. And we have been working to improve our property at Walnut Island. I know the county has in their master plans to, do things to help improve it. But there's one huge detriment to the entire process, and that is trying to accomplish something with county staff. No doubt, county staff does a phenomenal job with everything that you've mentioned tonight. But one thing that I can assure you personally, they do not deal well, if at all, with the tax-paying people of this county. And just a real quick thing on your website. Under government overview, it goes through a long list of things, and it says that it offers and guides us through our home building process. I've been trying to put up a boathouse, going on 6 weeks now. I have had my poles. I originally called. All you need to do is come fill out a building permit. Well, I went and filled out the building permit. Well, no, you need two sets of plans. Well, no, you got to go through FEMA. You got to do this, you got to do that. I was not provided a packet of material for what should have been a very simple process. I was told I needed to get the V-zone engineering done and everything. This was into the 4th to 5th week. I contacted Commissioner Payment. He called me back and we talked, and he told me that he came and talked to the staff and everything and streamlined it through, and I went back up for the 4th time, and lo and behold, nope, got to have all this stuff. To the tune of about $1,500, in addition to the CAMA permit for $200, which I've been told that CAMA represents 11 state and federal agencies. So I think I'm fairly well overregulated already. Then the county building permit and electrical permit, no problem. However, I was harassed about the fact that who was going to be my electrical contractor. I'm my electrical contractor. I was told for 35 minutes I could not be my electrical contractor. Finally, it was determined, oh, lo and behold, you can be your electrical contractor. So, read through the zoning ordinances and the building codes. It never stated that I needed this V-zone permit or engineered plans. I was told within one day I would have an answer through email. Come Friday, it will be a full 2 weeks, and all I've gotten is one email saying, we're doing our due diligence. Well, I've gone out because I planned on already having my boathouse built, so I'm spending that $1,500 to get the engineered plans. I would suggest that since some of you are leaving the board or the Board of Commissioners, that the new Board of Commissioners take a serious look at becoming more user-friendly within county staff to the taxpayers of the county. Once again, I do commend you. You have done a phenomenal job, because I remember growing up here as a kid and there wasn't much to do in Currituck County because Currituck County didn't have much money. It was a great farming place, but it was a very poor area. You've done a great job, but let's focus back on the taxpayers. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. All right. Anyone else for public comment?
I think you don't need to leave that hanging out there.
Well,
is somebody going to get with Mr. Crozer to finalize what the issues are?
I've already spoken with Mr. Crozer, and
Okay.
we're trying to pursue with the FEMA officials if, in fact, there's any way to permit a boathouse without a V-zone certification.
Which is federal.
Which we have very limited ability to not adhere to if we participate in the community rating system and the National Flood Insurance Program. But, I mean, we'll do our best.
So y'all are working on it, and
correct.
You can send us a report.
I can.
That would be nice.
I thank you, sir, but I've already done everything that needs to be done. I'm paying for the V-zone permit and everything else, and it would be great to pursue it for people in the future, but it's drug it out to 6 weeks for me now. I've gone past what the county is saying and just going ahead and taking care of it. Thank you, sir.
All right, well, just an additional comment, and we've made it before. A lot of the requirements that we have, particularly in building, in fact, that's where that's where we hear it the most, is building matters. A lot of it isn't so much the county's regulations; it's regulations that are imposed on us by either the state and their building codes or flood zone. I personally had an issue with, it's similar to what you're talking about before I was ever elected, having to get 2 elevation certificates for and it wasn't the county irritated me because it was a slab. If it was 10 feet and 4 inches when I poured it, or when it was poured, and when the building was affixed to it, the building was going to have to be 10 feet 4 inches. I mean, that's just the way it worked. But the county required that I had to go get a second elevation to prove that the building was 10 feet 4 inches, even though the concrete it fit on was. It irritated me at the time, and it still kind of irritates me. Well, it wasn't what the county did. It was the participation in the flood zone and the FEMA that requires it. And I sense your frustration because it doesn't make any difference who requires it or whatever. If it's irritating, repetitive, and expensive, it's still irritating and repetitive and expensive.
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. Where my issue is, and I have a problem with the entire federal oversight that you were addressing before, but where my true frustration and anger comes from, I should have been handed a packet the first time I walked into the building department of what I needed to do, instead of each time I came back throwing one more kernel at me until they made the entire cob. And I have addressed it with Mr. Woody, and that is why I'm here tonight. I have not gotten what I consider good treatment as a taxpayer from the staff of this county. And I do understand everything else that you're saying.
And I will say that the conversation Ms. Crozier and I had was not with the requirements, as you were stating. It was with the process, with when someone comes up there, the staff should understand what the requirements are at that point and make sure that the applicant has everything he needs.
A packet.
A packet. Instead of his concerns, correct me if I'm wrong, was the multiple trips, and he'd come back and say, well, now you need to do this, and now you need to do that, and it drug it on so long. I mean, I'm a mechanical contractor. I've got to go through permit processes too, and the more streamlined we can get, the better it serves everybody. I believe that's what his major concern was.
Absolutely.
And I think it's reasonable to going forward that we have packets put together so as to facilitate the process going forward. I think that's reasonable if it can be done. All right. Anything further?
Just a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
We got a motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.